Oh, just
Right. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, state law, we advise that notice of this meeting is made by posting on the bulletin board in town hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers. This meeting will take place in Milburn Education Center at 7 p.m. on April 21st, 2026. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Here.
Mr. Ceruto,
Here.
Mr. Stoller,
Present.
Mayor Sacramandi.
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the March 9th, 2026 Special Township Committee meeting minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the March 17th, 2026 Township Committee regular meeting minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need to abstain.
May I have a motion to approve the March 17th, 2026 Special Township Committee regular meeting minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain for that too.
Reports. Again, this week is National Volunteer Week, and I wanted to recognize the extraordinary residents of Milburn who give their time, talent, and energy to strengthen our community. Volunteerism is the backbone of our town, from our schools and volunteer first aid squad to our civic and nonprofit organizations. I thank every volunteer whose quiet acts of service make a visible difference in the lives of our neighbors. Milburn is stronger because of you. Long-term strategic planning committee had their first meeting. They elected the leadership. They elected June Choi, who's the former mayor of Edison, and resident, as the chair. They elected Betty Liu as the vice chair and Jamie Ceruto as the secretary. And they're eagerly looking forward to beginning the committee's work. The library board met yesterday, and they asked me to relay two messages. First, on Sunday, April 26th, Friends of Milburn Library is sponsoring a Milburn 250 related program, Liberty's Music, popular music of the Revolutionary Era, featuring the ministers of Apollo duo Eric and Eliza Lickpack. This program is at 2 p.m. at the library auditorium on the second floor and is appropriate for all ages. Second, Friends of the Library is collecting books and vinyl records for its annual book sale through May 3rd. Items may be dropped off in a bin near the elevator on the library's first floor. Hardcover, softcover, children's books, and vinyl are accepted. Encyclopedias, magazines, textbooks, and torn, water damaged, or multi books will not be accepted. Thank you for your generosity. The book sale will take place May 16th through 17th. Our Friends member pre-sale will take place on Thursday, May 14th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. That's the end of my reports. Good evening, Ceruto.
All right, for a change. Good evening, everyone. As you may know, the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee held there was a Short Hills train station information session last week. And we gathered feedback and explored new engineering concepts. The process is still ongoing to talk about, but we are trying to get this project rolling this year, by the end of the year. So we're still collecting feedback. There were a lot of different concepts, that were thrown out there. There were pros and cons, and but I encourage the community to speak up on the Short Hills train station pedestrian safety improvements. Also, you may have seen there have been temporary angled parking and bump outs installed between Lackawanna and Holmes Street. This is a temporary project, but it's an exploratory measure. It does add additional parking spaces, but also narrows the crossing distance, which is critical. It's a dangerous intersection to begin with as a pedestrian and as a motorist, to be honest. And we've seen a lot of double parking in the downtown. So just a heads up on that. I met with Mr. McDonald and our engineering department with the Department of Transportation this week, past week, to talk about striping, signage, dangerous intersections such as the U-turn and slip lane by King's Supermarket and Route 24. So we, and it was an in-person meeting. How about that? We had 4 different engineers come from Trenton, and we're forming a good relationship and dialogue to improve traffic patterns and merges. In particular, we've seen a lot of cut through town. As we all know, 24 to 70 backs up. The Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee it has put together a ambitious April-May timeline and is advancing. They're actually meeting right now while we're here to talk about the Orange Bypass and Van Winkle projects. Reminder, this Friday is Arbor Day, and there are a couple of events with the Shade Tree Advisory Board. The mayor mentioned an event at the paper mill, but with 250, but also joined Bryant's Tavern, 1780, Voices from the Past, Sunday, May 3rd and Monday, May 4th. The Millburn 250 Committee and Paper Mill Playhouse, Carriage House will have an immersive theatrical experience as the tavern fills with historical figures like Hannah and James Caldwell during the eve of the Battle of Springfield. And anybody who's curious, Bryant's Tavern was where Wawa is now and formerly Paper Peddler. Let's see. Also have been meeting and having a lot of discussions regarding utility companies in town and ensuring that code violations, lack of responsiveness, or and the effects on the township's beautification are taken care of. So many conversations ongoing, and we will be talking more tonight regarding the potential creation of an arts council. Today is roughly my 100th day in office on the Township Committee, and continue to focus on getting stuff done, whether that's through meetings with the county executive, Department of Transportation, different consultants, engineering, etc., post office. But key focus to bring people together, have the difficult conversations, and put a plan in place. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's my focus. So, end of my report. And happy to be up here.
Deputy Mayor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mayor. One report, Community Service Award Committee. There was a nomination of sorts of a former resident, and I'm working with that committee to get a meeting set up so they can consider that nomination. Thank you.
Anyone Cohen?
I don't have anything tonight.
Anyone Stoller?
Thank you, Frank. Recreation Committee, just a reminder to register for the pool membership before May 1st to get your free passes. The 42nd Annual Fishing Derby is coming up on Saturday, April 25th for those who have kids, 15 and under, $5 to get in. For all the runners out there, the 4-miler registration is now open. That's June 7th. And then the second annual Par 3 breakfast scramble tournament registration is open online. That's going to be held Saturday, June 13th. Special Improvement District Girls Night Out is on June 4th in downtown. If you have not registered to participate, you can email info@exploremillburnshorthills.org. Just a great event. My wife and 3 girls have gone every year. It's fantastic. They had a lot of fun. The World Cup events start on June 8th. So if you think traffic around town was busy today, wait for that. If you've not registered, go to info@exploremillburnshorthills.org to see all the events that are going on in town during that week. Big shout out to sponsors for Girls Night Out, the biggest group of Compass Real Estate, and the World Cup sponsors, IDB Bank. located on JFK Parkway. Always a huge shout out to our sponsors. Finance Committee, we haven't met, we're still pushing the budgets put forth. BOE, Board of Education, last weekend, the science research kids hosted a symposium with high school students, researchers around the state for the competition. They did a great job and the presentations were phenomenal. The Odyssey of the Mind teams placed very high in the state competition. And then a big shout out to, we have 5 teams representing Milbertsburg Hills in the Nationals in the robotics this weekend.
Amazing.
They went out, I think, I talked to a couple parents, they went out on Sunday night or so. So just a big shout, we're with you guys in spirit, knock them dead. Joint facilities on the fields, we are all up to date on that. We haven't had a meeting since then. Open Space Tax Advisory Committee, Dave did a great job updating that last week. And then affordable housing, defer to council as always. That's my report, Mayor.
I do want to point out, Mr. reminded me the public information session on the budget is going to be held this Thursday at 7 o'clock at the library. So that's an opportunity to ask questions beyond the public hearing for minutes. So I hope to see you there.
Business Administrator McDonald.
Just a few quick things. This Friday, April 24th, is the Arbor Day event that Committeeman Ceruto is discussing, where they're going to plant 13 trees in sort of commemoration of 13 colonies, sort of a good 250 tie in there with Arbor Day. I believe that starts at 4 o'clock in Taylor Park. Also, just to piggyback on the Brian's Tavern, just so everyone is aware, that is a ticketed event. So if you want tickets, you can go to the milburn250.org website for that event. But just there are limited tickets available for it. And lastly, Memorial Day Parade on May 25th, starting at 11 a.m. as we have done for the past few years. So please hope to see everybody there. And if you're interested in participating, there is information on the Township's website.
Attorney Cantor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief report tonight. On April 15th, the Milburn Charter Study Commission issued its final report. They sent it to our clerk. And just so everybody knows, the Charter Study Commission had its own legal counsel. I commend our municipal clerk for the hard work that she's done, because we'll be having a special election on June 16th. So we've been coordinating with the county clerk, with the county office, with their lawyers, with the Charter Study Commission's attorneys, to make sure that election goes smoothly on June 16th, 2026. The notice that will be posted on the website has been cleared by both the county's attorney and the Charter Study Commission's attorney, along with myself. And and also I think residents interested in that final report, it's been published to the website. There's also a hard copy in the clerk's office if you want to review it, a hard copy in the library. That's my report.
Thank you. All right, public comment. Before we begin public comment, for those of you who are here to speak about tonight's ordinance on the Woodfield Historic District, in addition to the public comment, there is a separate 3-minute comment period during the hearing on that ordinance. So without further ado, when invited to speak, offer your comments. Please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident or a property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing as our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. To help facilitate an orderly meeting, to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 per session. Will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue, debate the matter. This is a time during the business meeting, public to offer comments. We'll now open the public comment poll.
Hello, my name is Annette Goodfellow. I live inside proposed historic district and I'm strongly opposed to the designation. One of my issues is that the nomination has moved through a closed, self-validating process. The same body that initiated and wrote the nomination also voted to recommend it, while other boards were confined to narrow technical roles. The Township Committee is the first and only elected body asked to weigh fairness, boundaries, cost, and community support. To date, it's been a self-validating loop. The HPC initiated and prepared the nomination report. The same HPC then held a hearing and voted to recommend its own work product despite majority opposition from affected owners. And when the planning board reviewed the ordinance, they explicitly said its own authority was very narrow and does not extend to fairness, boundaries, cost, or owner sentiment. The only check if it was consistent with the master plan, a plan that tells the township to encourage preservation. So the result, the master plan encourages more districts, the HPC writes and recommends one, and the planning board simply checks it against that plan. No independent body has yet asked whether this is the right district drawn in the right way with genuine support from the people who live in it. Throughout this process, there has been blurred lines between advisor and advocate. After the majority of residents submitted a petition showing majority opposed the district, HPC representatives contacted petition signers to confirm their position. This behavior looks less like neutral fact-finding and more like a political whip operation to manage opposition optics and protect nomination momentum. When the same body that drafts and recommends a district also works behind the scenes to influence residents' reported views, it undermines confidence that the process is impartial. Why this should matter to you? The historic designation is a permanent, hard to reverse regulatory decision that should follow a transparent, balanced process. Here we see a majority non-contributing district with arbitrary boundaries, clear majority opposition, and a process driven by a small group whose work has not faced independent scrutiny. Courts defer to municipalities only so long as their decisions are not arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. A record combining boundary inconsistencies, majority non-contributing status, majority opposition, and an insular process strengthens any future claims that this ordinance fails that standard. In conclusion, we are not just concerned about the outcome. We are concerned about the process. When the same group writes the report, votes to recommend it, and then works behind the scenes to manage opposition, the Township Committee becomes our only safeguard against an insular self-validating process. We are asking you to exercise that safeguard. Thank you.
Jeff Goodfellow.
Can you turn the mic on? Thank you.
Jeff Goodfellow. I live in an impacted neighborhood. I get to follow my wife, who's much better at this than I. I'd like to come up here and formally state that, obviously I'm opposed to the change as well. One of the things that appealed to us when we moved into the neighborhood is that it's not historic. We looked at a home on Minisink that isn't a historic district, and we didn't want to deal with the additional bureaucracy and costs that come with, renovations and changes to the home. We wanted to maintain our homeowners' rights and be able to choose for ourselves. I worked 9 years for a construction company and does a lot of historic preservation. I'm very familiar with what the costs and the additional time and bureaucracy that it takes to, maintain a home that is truly historic. I do not, I think a lot of people have spoken in the past and explained why we don't, the majority of the neighborhood who signed the petition 3 times doesn't believe it's even a historic neighborhood. I'd also ask you to emphasize and prioritize the opinions of the people that live in the impacted neighborhood and not other individuals from outside the neighborhood that are going to have an opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I don't mean to just temporarily switch gears, but
Start with your name, please.
yes, it's Robert Friedman. I live in the mountaintop section of Short Hills. Also a member of the long-term planning advisory committee. Last Saturday morning, a sanitation man tragically died in an accident not far from my home on Winthrop Road. It happened it was on South Orange Avenue, near the old Short Hills Road intersection. And although the police would not give me details of what happened, they don't believe it was speeding related. However, this tragedy should be a big wake-up call, not only to Essex County, but to Milburn's operating administration. For almost a year, I've been warning the county and the town of the huge traffic hazards on South Orange Avenue straightaway, starting from the reservation to the South Orange Old Short Hills intersection. This danger stretch is particularly acute at the ingress and egress of Winthrop Road, and my eldest son got into an accident there 3 years ago, trying to make a death-defying left-hand turn onto South Orange Avenue, which insanely allows drivers to go 45 miles an hour westbound while there's residential driveways in Winthrop Road and just a few hundred yards away from the intersection. Last year, I tried to do something about it. I reached out to the county first, since South Orange Avenue is a county road. Took them 2 months for them to get back to me to tell me that it's the town that needs to do the traffic report. I put together a full letter in early October to the administration. After 2 months of making sure that this traffic report was done, finally in early January, a draft report was prepared. But all it recommended was to put flashing lights around a 45-mile-an-hour sign. When I said that was absurd, subsequently later, the administration got back to me and told me the report was flawed. I said, fine. I kept on going to the township, emails. I have, all kinds of, I don't know how many pages of emails and letters and everything. I'm still waiting for an answer. And when this tragedy happened, the whole WhatsApp thread was lit up on Saturday morning with all the fellow residents in this town, in my neighborhood. So the town needs to, get off its stuff and get this done. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Feld, I live in the poet section. I want to commend what occurred last Wednesday. The Charter Study Commission was a historical moment. It probably was the most open, transparent process that I've seen in this community. The idea of a Charter Study Commission began in September 2020, and it created a nonpartisan grassroots social movement. It resulted in a report that I invite everyone to read. This community needs to combat the falsehoods that have been coming out about this study and its enactment. It was not a MAGA Republican scheme. 3 members are long-term Democrats. And I want people that over the next 60 days, you're gonna hear falsehoods, read the report, and why we need to change our form of government. I'm surprised that it wasn't mentioned that there's gonna be a special joint meeting between the SID and Township Committee this Thursday at 6:30. I don't know why it wasn't mentioned. I only found out about it by looking at the agenda packet of the SID. The reason I say that, the day after the last Township Committee meeting, the township filed a motion seeking frivolous litigation attorney's fees against me. And just from Bear Properties 1. I asked for a courtesy, professional courtesy of 2 weeks. It was denied. Then the reason was, they said we didn't give them an extension, but if you look at the docket, we gave an extension originally. It's amazing, I make over requests for the bill list and the time summaries. I ask everyone in this community to look at the pleadings, look at the time summaries. It's unbelievable that the township attorney did not do the research about the direct benefit study need until after the lawsuit was filed. The issue was raised at the public hearing. There's issues as to what was Bear Properties 2 dismissed without prejudice. The township attorney has told the court it was dismissed with prejudice, but I have a consent order with SID that says without prejudice, and the transcript that I provide all of you says without prejudice. look at your minutes, they're sanitized. When you look at the January minutes, reorganization meetings, there's no mention of the shout out to me. February 17th, when I warned you about the deadline that was coming up, that you had to approve the round 4 by March 16th. It's not mentioned. Why is that? Why am I always portrayed as the evil one when I've been trying to guide us?
Goes over that. My name is Eileen Klein. I live in Keene Road and I'm directly affected by what Rob was talking about with the tragic accident that we had on Saturday. We moved into this neighborhood in 1999. And the one drawback that I had for this neighborhood was this intersection. I didn't know about town government or anything. I called the Parks Department or the county. And I said, can somebody come talk to me about making this safer? And my suggestion was putting in turn lanes on South Orange Avenue where it'll make it easier for us to make a left turn out of our neighborhood or people turning into the neighborhood. And he looked at me and said, well, I would never let my wife make a left turn out of your neighborhood. And I was appalled that that was his attitude and it never went any further. And, you know, this is now 20 years later and I'm asking the Township Committee to please make sure that we get a bona fide inspector who is a specialist in traffic and safety and explore this area because something needs to be done. That poor sanitation man lost his life. I'm not sure how, but it was related to the traffic and the intersection and, you know, Old Short Hills Road and Winthrop. So please do what you have to, get the committee here to talk to the committee on the county level, get us a bona fide inspector that knows what the heck they're doing, not somebody who's gonna pat me on the head and say, well, I wouldn't let my wife do it, you know? I mean, really. Thank you for all the effort that you put in to making this town better. Thank you.
Christine Best, Milburn Township. I just have a couple fast questions. I just wanted to understand a little bit about some of the resolutions, particularly the protection of the Green Acres program for Taylor Park Inclusive Playground Project. And the reason why I'm asking about that is that, you know, I know that's obviously a grant and it's being matched by the township, but I want to make sure that the approval of the Green Acres program doesn't layer on any additional things that it could impact the historic designation of that park or any other types of rules or obligations that we have to deal with other organizations such as Main Street America. So I just wanted to ask if somebody might be able to answer that question for me later. I'm just ignorant on the issue. And then, the only other thing really that I had was in front of Old Short Hills Park, and Alex, I know that I've bugged you about this, but I was thinking about it. I am so tired of watching contractors trash our town. And I don't know why people think that that's okay, between trashing like curbstone, burning the road. You know, there's a group of contractors across from Old Short Hills Park right now. They're working on one home of 2 that was a development and it's a new homeowner. And I don't know who they are, but they're contractors. They have so many contractors there, it's ridiculous. And they have been parking literally practically on the bushes on Old Short Hills Park, which is on the master plan, a historic park. It's not historically designated, but it's one of the most beautiful things in our town. And they've just destroyed the place. I mean, it's literally, all the grass is gone from probably, I don't know, 60 or 70 feet. And all we need to do is just put up a couple more markers so people can't park there and put some, really now at this point, sod in. And I know that, Alex, you were generous enough to go out there and talk to the contractors, but telling them that they can't get a CO, until they fix it. I mean, they could be there for 2 more years. They've been there for 2 years already, and I can't even walk through that. It's dangerous, it's muddy. And I just feel like we need to really enforce code in this town. Those people are like so lazy, literally, they're young men, there's no reason why they can't drop off their stuff, just like I take my surfboard when I can't surf in Montauk and I don't have a parking pass. I drop my surfboard off at Ditch Plains and then I park my car somewhere else. They can park their car on Beechcroft. Thank you so much, bye.
Janet, these are regarding the hastened timetable for the reading and final passage of an ordinance. It seems that perhaps the catalyst of this proposal was the frustrating error in having to delay the final passing of the CETA abolishment, a very uncomfortable, controversial, and heated issue. Much township news, business and otherwise, is communicated via word of mouth. Many residents will probably not surf the website for news or watch township committee meetings on YouTube because of the lens. Also, the item of Milburn Short Hills is now defunct. So with an abbreviated timetable, there is less opportunity for residents to learn of township business and news, especially critical and controversial news such as the CETA debacle. Your fiduciary obligations is to always operate in the best interest of your constituents. Shortening the time for business decisions to be made and promulgated in a more expedient manner is definitely not in the public's best interest. Should this or other similar discussions arise, the bend must always be toward transparency. The process of public notices and public meetings are for those who are governed, not those who govern. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Last chance. All right. Now close public comment.
Another time.
There'll be a hearing on the ordinance.
Did you wanna read?
I'm so sorry. There's gonna be another time before the decision?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
The ordinance is up for adoption tonight,
You're
and prior to the adoption, there'll be a public hearing where the only subject matter will be the historic preservation ordinance, so there will be a time to speak up.
Thank you so much.
In that case, for responses, why don't we start with you, Mr. Suda?
All right, so I will respond regarding the speeding and this tragic incident on South Orange Avenue in Winthrop. I would agree, South Orange Avenue is a very dangerous road, as you know, pedestrian safety advisory board. I asked that we do a follow-up, Mr. McDonald, with the county, or if you have any more insight, and that would be great, we can do that offline as well. But I think it's on our residents as well. We have to be more conscious on these critical roads and at these intersections. I mean, there's no rush. There's just no rush. I mean, we're hearing comments earlier today about Milburn Avenue. And, we've changed that 3 to 2 lanes in one part. And people are talking about, well, the cars are moving slower. Well, yeah, the cars are moving slower because they were moving too darn fast. And we really got to take it down a notch with us driving. Ms. Best, regarding the green, I'll defer to Mr. McDonald on the Green Acres question, but regarding Old Hills Park and code enforcement, I know that we have multiple code enforcement officers, and I would agree that destruction of our public park should not be within the scope of their construction project. So hopefully we can button that up. And the township website, we do have notifications system, so any meetings or ordinances, I believe, as well, anything that is posted, I do encourage residents, we all do, I think, to sign up for the Milburn Alert system. is the name of it now? Melbourne Alert, yeah, Melbourne Alert System on our website, and you can get notifications on everything. And I would agree, the item, I love the item, but this is a great way to stay up to speed on what's going on. So it's any meetings, ordinances, and there's a calendar on the website as well. And that's all my comments.
Deputy Mayor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mayor. Taking the comments in order to the big fellows, I'll have some comments, but I'll do it during the hearing. And the Winthrop, Mr. Freeman, Ms. Klein on the Winthrop, I do think we gotta look at that and do something on it, but I think that Mr. McDonald's gonna address that. Old Short Hills Park, I agree as well that that's gotta be fixed. To Ms. Pizarro, you know, I've said before, I made comments at the time that was occurring. As I said before, I was elected, and now that I'm on there, just because we can do it, meaning we can shorten periods, doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Thank you.
Good evening, Cohen.
Sure, obviously, you know, something needs to be done about the South Orange traffic. I'm not sure how much is in our control, but certainly, as Mr. Ceruto said, the squeaky wheel does get attention. So we need to do something. I'll defer to Mr. McDonald to explain what's already been done. And as for Ms. Pizarro's comment, as you know, I did not support that. I still don't support it when it comes back. I think having the skip a meeting is a good time for people to learn what's going on and formulate their thoughts and either come out and support or oppose.
Committee Stolen.
Sure, the obviously South Orange Avenue is literally it's like the Autobahn. So I support anything we can do to slow traffic down there. And the other one would be Parsonage Road and White Oak. Son got his license at 8:30 a.m. was in a wreck by noon at that intersection. So I mean, it's crazy. I just want to go off, not on a tangent, but listen, we have so many great things going here on in town. Crime's gone down by 63%. Budget's coming out. We're the lowest in Essex County in terms of the tax. There's not going to be a tax assessment until 2029. We had that pushed back. We have new fields coming for our children. It's fantastic. The number of projects are on the docket right now for the Open Space Tax Fund Advisory Board to look at. There's so many great things going on. I don't want to get mired down in the negativity that some people bring forward. You know, Ms. Pizar, I understand everything you said. I just want to reiterate, though, that, you know, CETA was not disbanded per se. It was reconstituted. It was reconstituted for a number of different reasons. One is it blatantly left out two of the Black African-American churches here in town, BAM and Zion, and they got up and spoke. Pastor Maribel stood up here and spoke about it. The number of tiles were egregious in terms of people getting tiles for the 250 project, 9, 10 tiles for some organizations, and other organizations like Zion and BAM left off. So they did not keep minutes, they did not follow protocol, et cetera. So, you know, everybody, there's a lot of different moving parts going around on all these different items. Ms. Best, I agree with you. Old Short Hills Road, I mean, if somebody's coming in there ripping up the concrete, ripping up the grass, I actually differ though. I think it's withholding a CO, Alex, is not a bad solution because obviously somebody's paying for that and wants to get in that house. But maybe we throw a monetary fine on top of that. I don't know. There's some opportunities we can look at. And I look forward to having the discussion on later in the day. That's it. Thank you.
All right. So Ms. Goodfellow, we'll talk about HPC a little bit later, but I will just like to point out process was followed. Our HPC ordinance that we have in town is considered the model ordinance for the rest of the state. And the way that works is the process was initiated by the neighborhood in this case. We had a majority of residents come forward and say they wanted to be designated. we have better things to do with our time than to just unilaterally decide to go designate neighborhoods. So this process was started by your neighborhood. Now, it seems that many in your neighborhood may have changed their mind along the way. We were asked during the process to give more time, we did. And now we're here today, so we'll deal with that later in the meeting. But I just want to say, the HPC board is the one that determines whether a proposed district is indeed historic. They voted, they determined that that district was eligible to be considered historic, and you're right, it is up to the TC, and we will take action or not tonight. Let's see here, Mr. Friedman, you and I have talked about the area near Winthrop Road, South Orange Ave, Short Hills Road. The cars do fly by there. I think that we did a traffic study, and I think that Mr. McDonald will speak to that. I think there's some updates that we need to do to that, or it was incomplete or something. I do also think that we should probably reach out to the county on this. Mr. Orlando, I believe you might be watching via Zoom. I would like to bring this to your attention, and then maybe we can loop in Sanjeev, the county engineer, to see if there's anything that can be done. So I agree that's a very dangerous intersection, and we should see what can be done about that. Let's see. Ms. Pest, I agree contractors should not be tearing up our curbs or roads or parking on our parks. If that is indeed occurring, we should enforce it. So, I would encourage Mr. McDonald to see if we can have the police go and do some enforcement in that area. And if there was damage that was done, if we can attribute that to a source, then we should try and deal with that. Ms. Pizar, we're the most transparent township committee that we've had in decades, I would say. Yes, it's unfortunate that we don't have local newspapers anymore. Fortunately, that's no fault of our own. If I could will a Milford item into existence, I would. But we have what we have. But what we have done is we have an alert system where you can sign up and you can say, I want to know anytime there's an ordinance that's posted. I want to know anytime there's a bid. I want to know anytime there's a weather emergency. There's different categories you can sign up for. And I'll tell you, you get those push alerts so fast. The other day, I thought we were going to have to reschedule a meeting, and I got a push notification that it had been rescheduled within 5 minutes of me sending the email to reschedule it. In fact, it was so fast that I then had to cancel the rescheduling because the scheduling error was resolved. So people got some extra alerts, but it's lightning quick. We're very responsive there. So anyone that wants to know what's going on in town has many, many ways to do that. So I see no reason why we should be any different than other towns. Most other towns do their ordinance reads sequentially. First read at one meeting, second read another. Obviously, if it's a land use or a zoning ordinance that needs to go to the planning board, or if it's a historic preservation, something there, it has to go for HPC review, and we'll leave extra time. We've also, as you can see tonight, we have a lot of people here. We had residents say we wanted more time with this, so we actually postponed the second read of that ordinance. So when there's a reason, we can do a delay, but the delay should not be the default. That's my opinion about that. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think I will just comment on two of the items. As it relates to South Orange Avenue, the mayor's correct. We have done a traffic study. As a matter of fact, the township committee approved the placement of a speed indicator sign on South Orange Avenue as it approaches Winthrop. This was a measure suggested in that study to alert people to the speed they're going. The difficulty with South Orange Avenue, as many are aware, is that it is a 4-lane county road that's main objective is to carry people from one side of the county, basically I think it's an east-west direction, as efficiently and quickly as possible. And that condition exists from essentially, South Orange to the border of Florham Park. It is not an easy solution to say, just slow down the traffic on South Orange Avenue. We've had this conversation with Mr. Friedman, and I've had this conversation with the county. It is a reluctancy to do that, given the amount of traffic that it does handle. I think also what we were attempting to do is find solutions that were least intrusive. One of those is to address the site triangle at Winthrop. My concern is that the real solution, which is to eliminate the left-hand turn from Winthrop, may not be the desired solution. But so that has not been suggested at this point, but what has been suggested is to address the site triangle, to put in a speed indicator sign so that people know that as they're approaching that intersection and that traffic signal at Old Short Hills Road and South Orange Avenue, their speed slow down and to manage their speed. As far as the accident goes that occurred on Saturday, it's still under investigation, so I just wouldn't want to make the assumptions as to what occurred and why it occurred. So as it relates to Old Short Hills Park and the contractor parking there, yes, the individual has been parking on Fairfield Drive as well as on the side of the road on Old Short Hills Road, where there is no parking signs, where parking is permitted. And I think so that individual who is working on that property parks in a safe manner that doesn't obstruct traffic, that doesn't create issues on a tricky portion of Old Short Hills Road as it bends at Fairfield Drive. And so while they have it's a balancing act, right? We're trying to balance between somebody that's doing work on their home and their ability to they have a bunch of contractors that are already fitting in the driveway, and then those additional contractors, and working with them to do so in a safe manner, and also putting them on notice that when they're done, they will not receive a CO from the township until they restore the portion of that side of the road that they've been parking on. So it can be done in a safe manner. So this has been addressed and spoken to with the contractor, not received very many complaints aside from the one that we're hearing tonight. As it relates to that, we can also ask them to park more of the vehicles on Fairfield Drive so that they can do that in a safe way as well, because there's parking permitted on that street, Beechcroft, whatever. But part of the reason for that was just so that they could do so in a safe manner. And as it relates to Green Acres, the Green Acres portion of the park is only the playground area. The park is identified on the township's Rossi, which is our open space with the state, but Green Acres is only associated with the designation and this grant, which is not a match. It's a $750,000 grant, which the township has to provide $250,000 so it's a 75-25 grant. But yeah, so that's the only portion that impacts.
Just a question, we can hold back the C of O, but as a residential property, is there something more we can do? Because the truth is, we don't give it to them, it doesn't become an issue until they want to sell, down the road, which could be.
Well, look, I think, again, we can force the issue, we can get them off the road, we can get them to try to park on their property, do something. They can, once they're completed, they no longer need those amount of, the homeowner has been very cooperative in this way and understands exactly. We've been out there several times to talk to them. Every time we've received a complaint, we've gone out and addressed it. Again, we can just kick them off the street and tell them they can't park there anymore. That's probably the easiest way. Have them restore it now. But I don't know where they're gonna park. So if they start parking on Fairfield Drive and then we get complaints that they're parking on Fairfield Drive, then what do we do? And then if they start parking on Beechcroft and we get complaints that they're parking, I just feel like if,
It's a valid point. I'm pretty sure somebody who lives on Fairfield or in a $6 million house doesn't want a big truck parked in front of their house. I know I wouldn't in front of my house. I'd be up in arms. Park.
As I said, it's a balancing act. If there's a way to address the park restoration prior to or the parking, we will, but I mean, they're actively doing work on the home. And so, and the more you know, to a degree, the more you restrict that, the longer it could take as well, so.
That being said,
Being addressed.
I think it'd be better, you know, if the trucks had to park on the lawn or parking on our park. Park on the homeowner's lawn as opposed to one of our parks. Sounds like you'll.
Yep.
Attorney Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me ask to respond to some of the issues raised related to Bear Properties. I think we've given this information before, but I just want to clear the record. To the extent that there was an issue that there were no orders entered, two things, these were filed again with the court this week because the Bear Properties parties tried to file new orders. We think they're trying to extend their appeal period, which has long ran. But I'm looking at an order here. It's dated July 17th, 2025. It's on my screen. It's also part of the pleadings that has been filed. And this is Bear Properties 1, and it says, the plaintiff's verified complaint is dismissed for the reasons stated on the record. So that's an order dismissing the complaint. I'm also looking at another order, again, which we filed into a contention that there were no orders filed. It's also dated July 17th, 2025, and it says order that plaintiff's complaint be and is hereby dismissed. Those are two orders for the two cases. They were both entered by the court on July 17th, 2025. They're on the docket and they were refiled with the court. And I just think that it's important that the public understands why we're moving for sanctions. And it dovetails into the conversation as to why the township did not give a courtesy adjournment. In Bear Properties 2, there was an issue with one of the resolutions. After the complaint was filed, we reached out to plaintiff's counsel and asked for some additional time to answer, which is common. It wasn't a long extension. That request was denied. On the first day that the plaintiff's counsel could put the township into default, plaintiff's counsel not only put the plaintiffs into default, but then broadcasted it to the media, came to meetings, and then a lot of times in law, if there is a default entered, the parties work it out. They come to some consent. They say, okay, we're going to file our answer. You vacate your default. Instead, the Bear Properties plaintiffs forced the township to file a motion. And again, I'm looking at an order. It's also entered July 17th, 2025, addressing that. And it says it's ordered that default be and is hereby vacated. And the second order paragraph allows the parties to enter their answer. And why do I bring that up? That costs this township a lot of money. If the Bear Properties had been reasonable throughout any of this, sanctions motions would not be filed. We had a settlement conference with them, which was not fruitful. So we believe that sanctions are appropriate here, especially given the filing of Bear Properties 3, which substantially seeks the same things that Bear Properties 1 and Bear Properties 2 sought. At some point, this frivolous litigation has to stop. Taxpayers' dollars are at stake. And just on a personal note, it's, sitting up here as your municipal attorney, I try to keep costs down. We have a very reasonable municipal rate to the township. But to do things like not allow township time to answer and not vacating increases legal costs. So on one end, the person who is increasing the legal cost is coming up and complaining about the legal cost. So he's creating his own issue so he can come up and complain about it. We wouldn't have Bear Properties litigation fees, two cases which were both dismissed by the court. The court found both cases on the merits did not have merit, would not have any legal fees had they not been filed. So a good way to keep our legal fees down is to not file frivolous litigations against the township if you are a resident. No further report, Mayor.
Mr. Cantor, do you have a ballpark of how much the Bear Properties has cost the town to date, the litigation?
So Bear Properties 1 preceded me. When I came in, I believe it's well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not close to $200,000.
So it's over 200.
Over $200,000. Again, that's not all my firm. I came in after Bear Properties 1 had been litigated. I can tell you for a fact that Bear Properties 2 cost the township $60,000, which is what we're seeking against the Bear Properties plaintiffs in our sanctioned motions.
And I believe the sum total of the annual fair property SID assessment is under under $2,800. So put that in comparison, $250,000 versus what, $2,800 a year? Is that a great use of taxpayer dollars? We don't think so, and that's why we took the action we did. All right, consent agenda resolution. Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolution. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent? Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolution 26-120, resolution 26-128, which are listed on the consent.
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, ordinances. Ordinance 2746-26. President Stoller is scheduled to sponsor.
All right, and for the record, it seems I always get the ordinances on open containers.
I know. I know that stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2746-26, ordinance creating a temporary open container area. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance posted in accordance with law on the Milburn Township Public Notices page and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 at the Milburn Education Center.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, ordinance 2747-26. President Stoller is scheduled to sponsor.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance 2747-26, ordinance creating a temporary open container area. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance passed in accordance with law on the Milburn Township Public Notice page and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, May 5th, 2006 at the Milburn Education Center.
Second the motion, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Ordinance 2748-26. President Cohen is scheduled to sponsor.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with open containers. Excuse me. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2748-26, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. This ordinance is responsive, it comes out of the zoning committee. It was raised so that, no pun intended, it was for the town's building height, so that the homes that need to be raised to have flood, so they don't flood underneath. It exempts them from the height requirements. It also redefines what a half story is. So it's all about stone. I move that the ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance posted in accordance with law on the Milburn Township Public Notices page and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Please be advised of the different location of this meeting and public hearing, which will be held at the Milburn Library, second floor, 200 Glen Avenue in Milburn.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, take a 5-minute recess. All right, so we are going to resume our meeting. So right now, we're gonna be doing the second reading of ordinances. And I think this is the one most of you are here for tonight, ordinance 2728-26. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2728-26, ordinance designating the Woodfield Short Hills Estates as a historic district pursuant to the Historic Preservation Ordinance of the Township of Milburn. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage, advertised in accordance with law. I now declare the hearing open. Anyone that would like to speak, please come up to the podium. Going once. Anyone online?
Like.
Thank you. My name is Ellen Steinberg. I reside in the Woodfield section of Short Hills and have lived here for 22 years. I am opposed to the historic designation for our district. 5 months ago, Ms. Canfield first raised the issue of designation of the Woodfield section to the Historic Preservation Commission at their November 6, 2025 meeting. I know this because I watched the YouTube video. Ms. Canfield said that she hadn't paid any attention to this area, but that the residents had invited her to speak, and they had put together a petition. She told the commission that there were 54 properties in the district and that 40-something wanted the designation. She continually stressed to the commission that the request for historic designation was being driven by the residents of the neighborhood. Ms. Canfield then made a motion to have a nomination report prepared. Based solely on her representations that night, the commission approved her request. The first time many of us really paid any attention to historic designation was when we received a notice about a January 22nd Historic Preservation Commission hearing. How could this happen? When we asked to see the petition of those who wanted it, we were told it was lost. I recently put in an Oprah request. I was told neither the clerk's office nor the Historic Preservation Secretary has a petition on file supporting the historic designation. Since that petition is supposed to be the basis for the creation of this district, is this process even valid? But what we do know is a petition opposing the designation does exist, and it was actually filed with our town clerk. We also know that Ms. Canfield's claim that 40-something properties wanted a designation was simply untrue, and there was never a majority wanting it. For the petition opposing designation submitted right before the March hearing was signed by 31 of the 54 properties. That's about 60% of the properties opposing the designation. The residents who would be affected by the historic designation do not have a vote on this issue. That decision will be made by the 5 of you. It is our hope that you will listen to the majority of residents who oppose the designation, and you will not impose the ordinance on us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Austin Ozawa. I am a resident in the Woodfield area, area that's affected by this. What I want to talk about is, as Ellen said, I mean, the majority of people that are affected by this are opposed to it. I think it's very clear. You all understand that. That's part of the record. I think then we have to think about, well, if it was passed, how does that affect people? How does it affect? A majority of the people are against it, and if it is imposed, what happens? Well, first off, I think that it's not necessary. We have a lot of zoning, we have a lot of permitting and inspections that are all part of that process. If there were to be something changed, you have limits on lot width, lot depth, setbacks, building coverage, building height, lot coverage, these single family dwelling requirements, house of worship limitations on size of acreage. I mean, the thought that those limitations are not sufficient to protect us from things like subdivision, and other people taking away sort of all the aspects of a community we love is just untrue. Based on the facts, there's only 2 or 3 properties in the affected area that could even be subdivided. And I just don't think that's a realistic risk that we're focused on. So then what do we have to gain by putting this into place? Again, against people's will. Well, we add an additional layer of bureaucracy, not only to the contributing homes, but to the non-contributing homes. And as you know, a significant amount of these homes are non-contributing. They have for admission of the people applying for this, have no historical value, but are being imposed with additional bureaucratic limits on what they can do, a checklist for approval of things that have significant number of items on them. Obviously, as you know, additional fees, escrow fees, application fees, 15 copies of surveys, site plans, landscaping plans, drawings, etc. A huge layer, again, on people that don't actually want this to happen. So what are the risks? Well, people have to put in a huge fixed cost to start a process that they really don't know how it's going to end. There could be any conditions that HBC wants to put on people in order to sort of enforce what they view as maintaining the historic preservation of the area. These standards are vague on their face, which again puts a lot of risk at people to try to do what they need to do and honestly put a lot more money than they might think to get things done. There is a requirement of minimal change to defining characteristics, preserving historic character, recognizing a house as a physical record of its time. All these things are very vague. Like, I wouldn't know how to do that other than to try to maintain what my house looks like, which I always want to do anyway. I mean, that's always the thing. But to go into something and really be beholden to something that arbitrarily is imposed on me is what I view as a problem. So I'm against this motion. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arjun Iyengar from 2 Kenilworth. I want to underscore I'm part of the 30+ properties that are opposed at the 53 to this ordinance to get for historical designation. At present, this proposal does not meet the standard criteria for historic designation, which is intended to recognize districts with a cohesive architectural or historical identity. Woodville reflects a broad mix of styles, construction periods, and alterations without a unifying narrative or intact streetscape that would justify designation as a coherent district. The proposed boundaries further undermine its credibility, with properties included and excluded inconsistently and without a clear rationale, given the appearance of a gerrymandered district rather than a naturally defined historic neighborhood. Compounding these concerns is a lack of transparency, as homeowners have not received meaningful explanation regarding the exclusion of their properties. For a process with such significant lasting implication for property rights, this level of inconsistency and opacity is deeply concerning. Additionally, it's important to address the broader context in which much of the designation is being considered. Much of the support of the historic designation appears to be rooted in a desire to limit future development, particularly in response to New Jersey's affordable housing obligations. While such concerns may be understandable, they are misplaced. The premise that Woodfield is at risk for this type of development is itself questionable, given its irregular lot configurations, established built environment, and limited proximity to transit and redevelopment corridors. Millburn is already addressing its housing responsibilities through formal planning mechanisms where such decisions properly belong. Ultimately, if the concern driving this proposal is future development, particularly affordable housing, it's important to be clear about what the law does and does not allow. Under long-standing New Jersey precedent, including Southern Burlington County, NAACP versus Mount Laurel and its progeny, municipalities may not use local land use tools to avoid their constitutional housing obligations. Courts have consistently made clear that when such obligations are at issue, local zoning, even well-intentioned overlays like historic designation, must yield. In this context, this proposal does not offer the protection it presumed to provide. Instead, it imposes lasting restrictions without achieving its stated purpose. Despite your political persuasion, most Americans have a grievance with the dysfunction of the general government of this country. Local governments has always been kind of the shining gold star in our country. And I think it's really important that local government is often viewed as the most responsive and trusted level of governance. When decisions of this magnitude appear to advance without clear alignment with this expressed views of the community, it risks undermining that trust. Historic designation is consequential and enduring. It should be pursued only where the criteria are clearly satisfied and where the process is transparent, consistent, and reflective of the community it's intended to serve. Thank you so much.
My name is Peter Humphreys. I live in the Woodville area. I'm opposed to the adoption of the ordinance. Before any action is taken by the Township Committee that deprives us of rights with respect to our homes, there should at least be a consensus of residents in favor of the action. When this first started, it was billed as some sort of spontaneous self-designation, but most of us had no idea what was happening. When we woke up to what was going on, we started to talk to our neighbors. It quickly became apparent that only a few of the owners of homes in the neighborhood wanted to be part of the historic district. That's our consensus. We have listened to the reasons that have been advanced for becoming a historic district. We have heard about preventing subdivisions and affordable housing. We've seen mocked up pictures of public housing built in the midst of our community. Last weekend, in a last-ditch throw of the dice, we were told, fuzzy math included, that studies show that prices of homes will soar if we become a historic district. Studies showing values of homes declining in historic district because of increased cost of repairs and renovation were never mentioned. We have not dismissed any of the arguments out of hand. Instead, we have talked about them as a community. Majority of us have concluded these reasons do not hold sway. We look around our neighborhood at the beautiful homes. The people who have kept them beautiful are the people who own them. We believe the best people to decide how to maintain their homes are the people who live there, not a bureaucrat or a commission who do not live in our neighborhood. We do not need any more supervision. Owners of 31 homes signed our petition protesting adoption of the ordinance. Prior to the March 3rd meeting, one household changed their mind. Since then, last Friday, one additional household has asked to remove their signature from the petition because the husband and wife could not agree on the issue. They asked to be treated as neutral. We respect that decision. Since the last meeting, people in our neighborhood have been barraged by emails, phone calls, texts, many from people who don't live in our district. Doors were banged on. People walking their dogs have even been chased down in the street. All in an attempt to get people to change their minds. One did. They became neutral. But no matter. The rest stood firm in their opposition to the ordinance. So here we are. Of the 54 properties, there are now about 10 who, for various reasons, including marital bliss, do not want to get in the middle of this skirmish. There are only about 14, including someone who owns 2 of them and one who lives in Florida, who are in favor of designation. And the rest, 30, oppose the ordinance. 30 to 14. It's not even close. 2 to 1. Twice as many people in our district against the ordinance as in favor. Accordingly, this evening, with respect, we ask that you listen to us and do not impose the ordinance on our neighborhood against the wishes of a majority of its residents. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Lomax. I live in Woodville Estates. And it's funny, it seems like we've got competing realities being discussed, changing numbers on people in support, people against. But really the whole discussion truly was generated by the people in the neighborhood. I was one of those persons or people. We just were responding to changes happening, especially close to Woodville Estates, where it looks like a little Miami. Huge, big, soulless glass houses popping up, especially on Hartshorn Avenue or Road, whatever it is. And it was also, this drive for historic designation was also motivated by this proposed state law that would allow condos and other large buildings in any area, including Woodfield Estates. Yeah, we have some unusual lot sizes. I don't think a builder would have much difficulty putting in the 40 units per acre if it's a funny shaped acre. And I hope other people's concerns if this law doesn't pass, I don't want it to pass. I hope it doesn't. But if you look at the state assembly, it's 57 to 23 and people in support of this law. So I'm concerned. So getting the historic designation would help protect the beauty of Woodfield Estates. both from what I consider out of character, extremely modern glass boxes. And it would also help if that proposed state law passes. It wouldn't prevent affordable housing, but they'd have to fit the character of the neighborhood, which is a high hurdle. Despite that, there have been some few tenacious neighbors that have set to keep the neighborhood from being designated historic. I think the tactics have been kind of intense, and they've shared data that seems to be focused on some cherry picked cases. It's really gotten kind of hysterical. I haven't seen anyone chased down walking a dog. I walk my dog all the time. Anyway, I also want to mention that the current count seems to be just barely over 50%. I haven't seen the numbers be 30 to 14. I think it's just barely over 50% saying no to the designation. And it's also worth highlighting, as Mr. Humphries was suggesting, the dispute between spouses. So in that signature, the count, whatever it is, it's one house versus yes, one house, no. And in a lot of the split households, it's the woman who's not being heard. And I don't think any political party wants to silence the women just because they don't agree with their husbands. So I would encourage the committee to please vote in favor of the historic designation. It will protect the character, the beautiful character of Woodfield Estates, and does have more support than 14 votes yes. Thank you.
I've been a resident in Short Hills for about 40 years. I want to address this issue, and I think it deserves serious consideration. I hope you adopt it. First, this is not an untested idea in our township. We already have several designated historical areas that reflect the original vision of Short Hills as a planned community. Expanding or adding districts is a continuation of an approach the township has already embraced. It's not a departure. Secondly, our historic designation is fundamentally about protecting what makes this community valuable in the first place by protecting its irreplaceable heritage. Short Hills was intentionally designed with a cohesive character, architecture, landscape, scale, all working together. Over time, that has become a major part of why people choose to live here. Without some form of protection, the character can be gradually lost through incremental changes that individually may seem small, but collectively can reshape the neighborhood. Third, there are practical benefits preservation for its beyond preservation for its own sake. In high-value communities like ours, predictability matters. An historic district can provide clear expectations about development, helping prevent out-of-scale construction, preserving neighborhood consistency. That kind of stability is an asset for long-term property values. It'll help stabilize and increase property values over the long term. It'll help attract buyers who value character and continuity, and will encourage reinvestment rather than tear downs. So you do have to acknowledge the concerns that many of the residents here obviously have expressed, like issues like property rights, costs, additional approvals, and they should be real, they should be taken seriously. But the designation, I think, is carefully designed to be as clear, fair, and minimally burdensome as possible. This isn't about freezing neighborhoods in time. It's about guiding change in a way that respects what already exists. Finally, this decision is not just about today's preferences. It's about stewardship. Once historic character is lost, it cannot be recreated. My question for you is whether we want to take a proactive role in shaping the future or a reactive one. Thanks.
I'm gonna be short. You don't need to keep blocking me. Yeah, my name is Jerry Ewert, and my wife was supposed to come up. She's getting a little shy, so. I reside in the Woodfield section of Short Hills. My wife's family and us have lived there for 42 years. And I'm opposed of the historic or heritage designation of any kind. And I just wanted to go on record and say that. No applause needed. But thank you for hearing us out.
Hi, I'm Ellen Horn. I live in the Woodfield section. I just wanted to say that I'm opposed to the historical designation we clearly have a majority of the residents in our neighborhood that are opposed to it. And it really got me thinking about the first time I heard about it was over the summer when Laura Overdeck hosted a meeting to tell us about it. And there was a sign-in sheet, like for us to get more information. And I know a lot of people signed it. And I think that's what was used as the petition to start this whole process, which seems like very, unethical and not transparent. Like, no one told me I was signing a petition. Since then, I've obviously signed the petition against. And it's just so interesting that apparently now that original petition can't be found. And when we say we have 31 of our residents who are not in favor of the historic designation, do we have a number of how many residents? We're very transparent in telling you that we have 31 out of 54. What does the other side have? The residents that do want historical have, what are their numbers? Does anyone know? Anyway, so I just want to reiterate again that we're against the historical designation. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Beth Mallett. I live in the Woodfield section of Short Hills. I've lived in my non-contributing, non-historical home for 34 years. I am opposed to this historic designation of my district. I urge everyone to look at the Historical Society's denial of 62 Western Drive, written up in Tap Into Milburn on April 7th. The HPC meeting continued to ask for more and more and more from those residents, and that has been in progress for more than 18 months. I urge them all to read that. To think that HPC is easy to deal with, not financially difficult to deal with, doesn't delay time for renovations is not correct. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for your work.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Overdeck. I'm in the Woodfield Estates area, and as has been said, I'm in favor of it. I do math day in and out, and I want to regroup us around the facts because I'm just hearing numbers that are just not correct. So, first of all, our district, actually by the state definition, 41 houses are historic. They were built more than 50 years ago. It actually is a really lovely old neighborhood with a lot of old charming houses. Secondly, if you look at the data on what being historic does, I really ground through the data. You have to use current data. I use Z estimates off Zillow because they're all simultaneous. I know there's something else floating around with sale prices. They are sales of houses spanning 10 years, economic upturns, downturns, COVID. It's just kind of a hot mess. It's meaningless. What you have to do is look at everything at the same time and look at a really big sample. And when you look at that, it shows that Short Hills Park district versus what's exactly around it, same school district, same traffic, $41 a square foot more. It's decisive. And you know how you know it? Because the people in that neighborhood are not here fighting to have their historic designation taken away, because they know it's working for them. And that neighborhood is freaking beautiful. It's just beautiful. It shocks me how hard people want to fight against having that. And I want to point out that the people who've been opposed, first of all, it's at 29 who are opposed. It's barely over 50%. And the work they've gone to get to that number, I don't think has been terribly honest. First of all, like a great example is the boundaries. The boundaries are not arbitrary. Everyone's mortgage is online at the Essex County Records website, which I think is kind of crazy, but they are all there. Any of you can look up your mortgage and see that on page 3 or 4, it gives the coordinates for the property and says exactly what zone it's in. And sure enough, they exactly match what we've said. They're in Woodfield, or they're in Hilltop, or they're in Samuel Watkins lands or the Hartshorn lands. The mortgage lenders and the county all agree that these are the boundaries, and it's been like that for decades. And I guess the point is that a lot of hysteria has been whipped up by not educating people of things like that and just not letting them know. to that point, I guess in a way, this petition being barely over 50% is kind of moot because actually, to the point made earlier, you're the stewards of our town and you're here to vote for what's good for it. Clearly, this going historic would be good for all of us in many ways. And I think that's the job here, right? What if you offered to just cut our taxes? Would you just vote for it if you liked it?
Time is up.
You wouldn't. So, anyway, I heard you.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Tripti Kushwaha and I live in the Woodfield Estates neighborhood. And hello to all my fellow neighbors here. I'm here to formally oppose the proposed historic designation of our neighborhood. I appreciate the character and charm of our community. That's why I chose the neighborhood. But this designation is the wrong way to do what we are trying to achieve here. The homes in our neighborhood are beautiful, and only 25 of the 54 properties are considered contributing, and all have had significant repairs or renovations or additions since they were built. I'm opposing this designation for 3 specific reasons. Erosion of property rights. A home is the largest investment most of us make in our lifetime. This designation strips me from the autonomy to make necessary improvements, repairs, or modernizations to my own property without navigating a burdensome, subjective bureaucratic process. Financial hardship. We have heard from multiple resources. Historic compliance often necessitates specialized materials and contractors, which drastically inflates the cost of even routine home maintenance. For many of us, this turns a charming neighborhood into an unaffordable one. Third, lack of consensus. A designation of this magnitude requires overwhelming community support. Yet, many of my neighbors feel their voices have been minimized or overlooked during this process. A neighborhood should be a place where we support one another, not where we impose restrictive mandates on our neighbors and their private assets. I respectfully urge the committee to vote against this designation. Instead, let's look at the ways to encourage neighborhoods' pride and preservation that are voluntary, not mandatory. Thank you for your time.
Jean Pasternak, nearly 30-year resident of Short Hills. I'm speaking tonight in support of the historic designation for the Woodfield Estates neighborhood. This effort did not appear overnight. It represents a substantial investment of time, research, and civic commitment by residents who care deeply about the long-term character of our town. At its outset, it was met with genuine enthusiasm and broad support. It's disappointing that the process has since been overshadowed by division. Some real estate developers and development connected but vocal group has shifted the conversation through pressure and conflict, discouraging others from supporting what was and should still be a forward-looking initiative. That dynamic should give this committee pause. Public decisions should not be driven by misinformation and the loudest voices, but by thoughtful consideration of the broader community's interests. I want to recognize those residents who have remained engaged in good faith. Their perspective reflects something important. Preservation is not the opposite of progress, it is a form of it, ensuring that future generations can experience being surrounded by beautiful architecture, beautiful old trees, and an exceptional quality of life we value today is a legitimate and worthwhile goal. I would also urge this committee to stay grounded in its long-term fiduciary responsibility to this township. Land use decisions are not isolated. They shape the trajectory of our community for all of us for decades. At a time when development pressures across New Jersey continue to intensify, with the Democratic Party being far and away in the majority and pushing legislation that's going to require more and more overdevelopment, it becomes even more important to be deliberate and not reactive. Protecting the beauty, architecture, streetscape, and bucolic nature of our exceptional suburban Millburn Short Hills sometimes requires balancing individual preferences against the collective good. That's not easy, but it's precisely the role of you as elected leaders of this township. I ask you Please evaluate this proposal on its merits, its long-term value, and the signal it sends about what kind of community we intend to be, not simply on the volume of opposition and the number of signs in front of your face tonight. Please think long-term. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Laurence Capone, and I live on Kenilworth Drive at the intersection of Post Manor and Kenilworth on the Circle. Over the last 5 years, 2 out of the 4 historic houses on the Circle were tear down. That's a lot of change already happening in our neighborhood. And do not repeat what was just said with a lot of eloquence. I just would like to urge the committee to preserve our historic district and our neighborhood.
Good evening, Township Council. My name is Prashant Sinha. I live on Woodfield Drive. I am opposed to the historic preservation designation. And I think I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that there is no coercion. There's been no, there's been intense activity because I think there's concern. There's been a lot of research. By I mean a lot, there was multiple people in our neighborhood that looked together, cross-checked our math, looked at a lot of different data. We spoke to architects in town and outside of town. We spoke to our various realtors, and unanimously from the professionals who deal with housing, they supported the sense that it becomes more difficult when you're in a historic district for days on the market, for resale value, and for basic maintenance. I think it's a beautiful town that we live in, no doubt about it. My kids have gone through here, we've been here for 17 years, and we love living here. And I think the people who choose to live in this town, in Woodfield Estates, appreciate that. And over the time that we've been here, the neighborhood has remained beautiful and continues to mature. I don't think that there's one viewpoint of historic preservation. It is not a consistent neighborhood. I appreciate the historic documentation that was provided in support of this, but even back in the 40s, in the development of Woodfield Estates, there was not one consistent style. There were numerous styles. And Woodfield Estates still lives up to the beautiful trees, the beautiful land acres, the lots, and the beautiful homes, frankly. So I don't think that there is a need for this designation. Thank you.
My name is Debbie Taffet, and I do not live in Woodfield Estates. I live near the, say my address, but I live in a different district in town, here near the Deerfield School. I'm against this whole historic classification. And what makes me really wonder is my house is now 70-something years old. So does that, and it's an extended ranch, does that make it historic? And there's a slippery slope here, I think, where we're gonna name this. People want to name this historic, well, then maybe that should be historic. And where does that come from? So I say no, I'm against it. I hope you will consider all these people's opinions. It just doesn't seem to make any sense for Woodfield or for other parts of the house.
Betsy Takalo, part of the Woodfield Estates. And officially, I don't have any words as well spoken. I've lived in Woodfield Estates, I'd say about 42 years, as well as my partners back there. I wanted to stress my opposition to the historic designation. I believe that it's somewhat arbitrary, the boundaries of it. I don't think you're taking into the full scope that the Oki track is a very important part of the Woodfield Estates, and to eliminate that from historical designation misses a huge issue that could potentially come up. If this gets voted in to be historic, we are stuck in that position. And if the Oki track eventually does get sold, that's where all your whatever fears that the historic committee has is gonna be. And there goes your historic neighborhood that is now burdened with the label of being historic when you are not protecting it with the Oki track, the other side of Woodfield Drive. It just seems very arbitrary, the boundaries. And we have worked hard on getting a petition, making sure everyone who is signing the petition understands what they are signing. They not only signed it one time, two times, they signed it three times. We have many times requested to see the petition of the people who want to keep it historic, and we have not seen it. We have heard that there are, but we have not seen any historic petition. And the people who are not on this petition doesn't mean that they are for historic. They didn't want to get involved, they don't want to sign marital issues. So if the squeaky wheel gets the grease, let's see that happen. And if we have the majority, as you said, what are we worried about? Let's see all these expressions come true and not designate us historic. We are the majority opposed to it. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is David Wong. I live in 601 Drive in the Woodfield section. I want to strenuously oppose the historical designation. There was no coercion or whatever. I signed the petition 3 times. I'm strenuously against it. There's no funny business other than maybe there was a donut at Hitch's place. But yeah, if this historical district was so great, people everywhere were jumping for it. But just want to tell you, very much against it.
Hi, my name is Patricia Manzi. I live on Woodfield Drive. I've lived there over 30 years. My family has had 3 homes in Short Hills over time. I'm very much opposed to the historic designation of the neighborhood for all of the reasons that have been stated. I thank you very much for your consideration of not passing this ordinance. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ritesh Jain. I live in Woodfield Estate. I own a home which is considered as contributing to the historic. I'm not a good speaker, I'm not a good reader, so I'm in a very bad position right now here. Ever since we received a letter from HPC, the life of a lot of residents in Woodfield neighborhood has changed very badly, very badly. I had to cancel a couple of trips. The last time when the historical meeting was there, I was supposed to be in San Francisco. Then the next meeting, I was supposed to be in India for work. Then I was supposed to be today I was supposed to be in St. Louis. Please do not postpone it anymore. You've already heard from the resident. All the residents are here. You have already heard from them that they do not want this. Please listen to those people, those residents. These people voted for you. These people showed their trust in you. And even on the record, Mr. Mayor, you have said that you're gonna go with the majority. You can clearly see where the majority is. So please respect our decision. I've done so much research on this. I've not seen a single data point where I would say my house will be much better off with historic. It is so expensive to maintain the processes. What I've seen multiple different applications. I've seen at least 10 recording of HPC on YouTube, HPC meetings on YouTube. Not a single one I said, oh my God, I should have been there in those meetings as a owner of those houses. Please don't do that to us. I met pretty much almost everyone in this neighborhood. Initially, they did not understand what historical mean. Initially, the letter which was sent by the HPC, it says yes and no, yes and no, yes and no. People thought that, oh, my name is no here, so I'm not gonna be historic. But then they realized that irrespective of its yes and no, when we got letter from Township, that even if it's yes or even if it's no, you are gonna be equally impacted as historic. So a lot of misunderstanding. Now you gave us 45 days to go back and figure it out what is right, what is not right. We're still here, we still have the similar number. what we had before. So I really urge you, please consider the majority, what you have been promising over and over again, that we are gonna go with the majority. You've clearly seen where the majority is here right now, please just help us here. I can go through more about the legitimacy of how during the Oprah request, we could not get the petition for it. I don't want to go there, but there are a lot of gray areas there which was done in this entire process. I hope we get rid of all those things here today and we just say no to this today and we get rid of, you guys give our right back to ourselves. Thank you. No. You get once only.
Yeah.
This is
1 3-minute session per person.
Hi, I'm Christine Best. I'm just making a fast comment that's neutral, as a resident. 2 words, no 3. Hilton Garden Inn. Thank you.
Do we have anyone online?
We did 3.
One declined. Try again.
Hey, could you turn your video on, please?
Hi, it's Ellie DeSanto from 2 Woodfield Drive. I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to have a Zoom tonight. Had to be home with the children, but I did want to take some time to voice my opposition to the Historical Preservation Society. I think a lot of the opposition summed up the points well, and I think we're anxious to hear you vote against this. So thank you for your time.
Becker, if you could turn on your video and unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, is that on?
Yep, we can see you and hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mike Becker. I'm always saying I'm in town 50 years. It's now 51 years. One thought. And I know you're not supposed to give your street address and all that, but I'm going to do it. Here's the reason. I lived at 163 Highland Avenue for 20 of the 51 years. And for sure, it was historic. Stuart Hart did it for his son, and his daughter lived across the street. And the horse carriage house next door, Ernestine Hartshorn moved there because the house was too big for her. Eventually, it got too big for me, even though I have 7 grandkids. Here's my point. I'm all for historic homes. That home was definitely historic. But next door to me, I hate to say this, a very unattractive, ugly contemporary, but it was in the historic district, so it had to go along with the rules, and it wasn't historic. So the bottom line of what I'm getting at is, I'm for historic. I'm not sure I'm for historic districts. I'm for historic homes, and he had 80 homes. They were numbered. My home that he built for his son was not numbered, but the other ones are numbered 1 through 80. They're all historic, and Canfield knows that, and she knows which ones are. And I'm sure in the area we're talking about, Woodfield, there's some beautiful homes that are historic. Why does it have to be district? Why can't it be individual homes? Thank you very much.
She declined.
Alright, so in
Oh,
that,
hold on, hands up again.
Hello, my name is Annette Goodfellow. I live inside the proposed historic district, and I am strongly opposed to the designation. I want to focus on one hard fact from your own nomination report and what that fact means for what you're about to vote on. The proposed district is being sold as a way to protect a historic enclave, but the township's own report shows that most of the houses in the proposed district are not historic under their own criteria. That undercuts the basic premise for imposing a historic district. To be clear, the HBC's nomination lists 54 properties inside the proposed district. It classes 26 properties as contributing and 28 as non-contributing. In other words, the historic district is 52% non-historic. Let me say it again. The proposed district is 52% not historic by their own designation. That alone should give you pause. Historic districts are supposed to protect a coherent concentration of historic buildings. Here, most of what you're regulating has already been judged non-historic. And it gets worse for those homes that are deemed as contributing. None of the houses are by named or notable architects. Nearly all of them have been altered or expanded over time. So I have to ask, what is the ordinance actually preserving here? A 1930s house in its original form, or a 30s house plus a 90s reno and a 2023 addition? If the answer is the latter, then this isn't traditional preservation at all. It's locking in whatever mixture of old and new happens to exist today and adding a regulatory overlay that applies to all homes. And to be clear, there is a 100-page rule book that is not limited to the small subset of contributing houses. It is applied to everyone inside the line. The bureaucratic overlay means a paid application fee, a 7-page checklist of required materials, and up to 45 days of delayed work before work can begin. If you approve this ordinance, you are voting to impose that application process, the fees, the delays, and a 100-page set of restrictions on a neighborhood where a majority of homes have already been classified by your own experts as non-contributing. A housing stock that has already been altered, a group of owners who in majority have told you explicitly and repeatedly they do not want it. Nothing in your ordinance and nothing in the law requires you to designate a majority non-historic, a majority district, a majority opposed district, and lay this kind of bureaucracy over it. This is a policy choice, and I'm asking you not to make that choice. Thank you.
Phil Kirsch, Millburn resident. I don't live in the Woodfield area. I live in a historic district in the Wyoming area. And I can contribute something, regardless of what side you're on about this, I can contribute something about how it affects the decisions, the ability of the homeowners to make decisions. My wife and I didn't realize the home was in a historic district. It's a pretty ordinary home, happened to be built in 1956. We have some beautiful historic homes in the area. I think a handful, I would say. And like I said, my wife and I didn't pay any attention to this. We didn't know it was historic. Our house didn't seem historic until we wanted to have solar panels installed. Now we're south facing and the sun shines very brightly on the front of our house. And when it snows, our snow melts like twice as fast as the people across the street. So that's great. We found out that because we could put solar panels on, but because we're a historic district, they couldn't be able to be seen from the street. Now you have to walk across the street and look up at our roof to see our front roof. But that made it impossible for us to do it there. On the back of our roof, these panels couldn't be seen from Sagamore Road, or obviously from the street, so that was okay. And fortunately, it still made it worth putting the panels in. But there's no way we get the same amount of solar every single day, being on the back as opposed to the front. And we have a period like the snow this winter and a freeze. We went, I would say, about a month having no solar. When we certainly would have had it, we would have gone a couple of weeks without it on the front.
but I could see by the metal we would have had it. So we pay for that all the time. And it's just one simple example. We're glad we put the panels in. You know, the HPC said, you have this solution if you want it, that's fine. But what I'm saying is it took away a decision in that case of what we could do as homeowners. And I'm sure there are multiple examples of where this takes away the decisions of homeowners, again, for what they want to do with their homes. I think anybody, whichever side of this they're on for Woodfield, that's certainly another thing to take into account. And from my experience, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Move this public hearing.
I apologize, someone was there.
Someone else online now? All right. Mr. Horton, if you could turn on your video, please.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. Thank you. Appreciate the time that the panel is putting into this and the committee is putting into all of this. I also live in the district. I am opposed strongly to the historic preservation designation. As you can see, I am with what seems like virtually the entire district here opposing this. It's really just a hassle for everybody that does nothing to help us out. As you can see, just driving around the neighborhood, the houses are well kept and very few are contributing, and the vast majority of residents are against it. So this is kind of a simple issue here. If people are against it, if it's not necessary, then we shouldn't pass this. So that's my 2 cents, and thank you for taking the time.
Do you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Rick Horn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't sign the petition.
Last call for public comment. Okay. In that case.
Just on this issue?
Yeah. Just this issue. Going once, going twice. All right, I move that this public hearing be closed, and the ordinance be adopted on final reading. The township clerk be directed to post the ordinance by title, passed on final reading in accordance with law. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so in this case, we're gonna have a discussion. I'm gonna start. So a few items. So one, I think the silver lining in all of this is all of you that are here from the neighborhood gotten to know each other a whole lot better. So whichever side you fall on, I think that's the silver lining. Next up, there was a petition. I saw it at one point. The majority of the people in this neighborhood seem to want to be designated historic. We would not have started this process. We wouldn't be going through this process if that were not the case. Now, I understand people change their mind. What concerns me a little bit, though, is I think some people change their mind due to a disinformation campaign that I saw going on. I personally received pieces of disinformation by some of the objectors sitting in this audience. And I think that's quite unfortunate. I think that the neighborhood should make this decision based on truthful and honest facts. And it's unfortunate that it seems that disinformation has prevailed. I'm also troubled by the reports I've received about harassment and intimidation. I have a letter here that was sent to me. I'm going to read some excerpts of it. Dear Mayor Sacamandi, I'm writing to voice concerns about the events happening in my neighborhood, Woodfield Estates, over our potential designation as historic. I've been mildly in favor of the idea all along, having seen years ago how my own house survived because of a caretaker's belief in preserving these homes. But in the past couple of weeks, those who are opposed become incredibly aggressive about pressuring neighbors to sign the petition against designation. Well, canvassers have gone door knocking, sometimes going multiple times after being told, no thank you. Most disturbingly, one couple came to our door and demanded that my spouse and I sign the petition. But we refused. A few days later, a different neighbor who's been our neighbor for over 20 years, but has never introduced himself before, came to our house. Later on in the letter, it goes on, when I told him we were going to the meeting to learn about the reality of both sides, he began to make very thinly veiled threats against us if we did not change our position and sign against historic. I think it is horrifying that neighbors are so desperate to block this when going historic would actually benefit our neighborhood. It makes me question their motives and also makes me question the petition. While my spouse and I disregarded our neighbor's hostility, many people are very scared by threats and would just cave and sign the petition. It is important that the Township Committee understand that the tactics used to pressure people, and that until this bullying and harassment went on, the majority of the neighborhood rightly wanted this. Letter is dated March 4th. Now, I've seen data that suggests that homes in historic districts actually have higher value, especially in Short Hills. There are a lot of buyers that, Short Hills attracts premium buyers. And there are a lot of buyers that will go and seek out a historic neighborhood because they know that when they buy in that area, it's gonna look pretty much the same. It's gonna have its character preserved. It's gonna be protected against overdevelopment. It's gonna be protected against someone buying a house, tearing it down, and putting up a giant glass box, one that looks similar to an open garden inn.
Stop that. He's speaking.
But
Stop waving and speak.
so. So there's a certain type of buyer that will pay a premium for living in a historic district, and the data shows that. So, look, I think ultimately it is up to the residents of the neighborhood, and we've said that all along, and I'll maintain that. But I will say, and I want to go on record saying, I think you guys are making a horrible decision. I think you're going to regret it in the future. I think that the laws that are coming down from the state and being foisted upon us are trying to steadily erode single-family zoning across the state. While historic preservation districts won't prevent that, what it will do, it can't prevent the overdevelopment, but what it can do is it can help preserve the character of your neighborhood. So for instance, if this law that's pending in the state legislature that would give religious institutions and nonprofits the ability to build as long as there's an affordable housing component and to ignore local zoning. If it was in a historic district, that could still happen, but it would have to go in front of HPC for review, and whatever got built would at least be within the character of the neighborhood. So if that law passes, I have a feeling we're going to see some of you back here saying you've changed your mind and want to become historic. The other thing that I want to address is, someone brought up the fact that the district maps seem arbitrary and gerrymandered. Whenever you do a district, you have to draw the line somewhere. And in this case, history helped guide where that line was. This land was all part of, a single parcel known as the Woodfield Estates way back when, and that's where the lines came from. So whoever had questions about that, that's why that happened. The other thing that I find interesting is the initial ringleaders of this opposition. One of them was a gentleman that wanted to tear down his house. I was concerned he wouldn't be able to do that. He was able to tear down his house, and now he's no longer in the opposition. The other individual had plans that he didn't share with his neighbors to build a massive structure in his backyard and to take down 200-plus-year-old trees that soak up a ton of groundwater. And unfortunately, we had no mechanism to stop this, and we're looking at tree preservation ordinances that would help protect against the stormwater damage that can come when people remove big trees. But I think it was a little disingenuous for those individuals not to be upfront and honest about it. And another set of ringleaders are real estate attorneys. So, I really question what their motivations are. Do they work for developers?
Do you know
I
the
don't know.
real estate attorneys?
I'm not gonna.
So you're out of order.
I'm not
So
gonna
you're out of order.
speculate. But, I think overall, I think you guys are making a big mistake, but ultimately it's yours to make, and I'll respect that. Anyone else at home?
Sure, I don't like the word ringleaders. I think maybe organizers would be better. That being said, I bought my house because it is an historical neighborhood. It's close to town. I can walk to the train station. I'm not worried about somebody tearing a house down across the street, et cetera. But I did that on my own volition. I had to sign a piece of paper that said, hey, Ben, I understand that this house is historical and you have to go through a number of things, the historical procedures, et cetera. And I've done that and I'm happy to do it because I love where I live. And I love my home. It's 154 years old, 13-foot ceilings. And I've been to a number of homes up in the Woodfill Estates. I've been to Miss Overdecks. I've been Hatesha's, beautiful homes, should be maintained, the character of them, et cetera. I almost feel like over the last 3 months, 4 months, as a, I'm in private equity, but I probably should be a therapist or a psychologist. Everybody in this room that I've met for and against in the diners and the pubs. I've got calls in Germany. I got calls at the national championship in Miami. And just putting in the time and the effort. What I do hope is whatever happens tonight, you guys are all neighbors. You live together. There's a lot more that unites you guys. Personal respect, having the respect for people's decisions. The bedrock of democracy is the ability to agree to disagree. And that should not ruin your neighborhood. It should not. I got some emails about divisiveness and such. We have enough of that on a national politics level, but where we sit today, in your beautiful neighborhood. I almost bought in your neighborhood, by the way. I think it was 2 Oaklawn. Around the corner there, a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful house, needs a lot of work. What doesn't really? So as I go through this, I really just want to encourage everybody to say, whatever transpires tonight, you're all neighbors. I was at a safety meeting on Sunday. I mean, God forbid how many meetings we have to go to or volunteer to go to. But safety is about your neighbors. Your neighbors are your best line of defense. If you're traveling, if you're out, if you see somebody suspicious walking in the neighborhood, somebody without plates on the car, et cetera. So you guys all have to look out for each other and have each other's backs. I'm a big believer of that. I too heard initially that it was 80-20 for, against, et cetera, which, all right. I hate forcing anybody's hand, but if that's the number, that's the number. I said, let's go through, let's do the work, let's understand where the numbers come out, because I have a very difficult time stepping on people's civil liberties, on their home ownership rights. It's usually your largest asset, et cetera. And I've put myself out there. I think I've met just about everybody in the room. So I know everybody in my neighborhood, I know everybody in Woodfield. So I just want to, encourage anyone who, if it passes, if it doesn't pass, you can always self-designate. That's always an option as well, if it means a lot. But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure you guys all understand and respect each other, and that neighborhood, hills, right? So I'll use the word hills. I've talked to enough people where it's been very difficult. That's where I'll leave it.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I think historic preservation is a good thing. I've historically been a supporter of it, the various things that we designated. One of the things that we designated was the Short Hills Village neighborhood. And albeit that was commercial properties, not residential, one of the overarching principles when I was involved in that designation was to make sure that anyone that was included wanted to be included. And there was a property that logically should have been included, but the owners of this commercial property were very much opposed to it. It actually abuts 2 different historical districts. I'm not going to say what it is, maybe you can figure it out, but it was not included. And from a historical point of view, it was probably one of the more historical properties in the whole area. Then we moved on to the Merriwood Nottingham fiasco, where we saw signs throughout the town, not unlike the ones you have today, except they were on the street for everyone to see. And that was either tabled or, it's not gonna come up again. And I'd be willing to bet that there were probably a bunch of people who had those signs on their lawns that if they were asked again today about making that area historic, given some of the development that's going on there, they probably have a different opinion. So, but as I said throughout this process, what I was going to be guided by was the numbers. And while I do agree with Mayor Sacamani, I do think that that this is an unfortunate mistake. I'm going to side with the majority, as I said I would, and it's pretty clear that the majority of residents don't want it. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say thank you to all of you who contacted me, whether it was emails or whether it was discussions. I truly appreciate talking to all of you. I've always said I will talk to people and I will listen to them. As some of you know, I sit on as the TC liaison to the HPC. I believe in its mission, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's not as onerous as people feel it, the people who don't want to be designated. There was a mention earlier about 62 Western, and I think if you dig into what happens, what's going on with that application, you'll see that it's not an undue delay. It's a big project, and it's complicated what's going on there. But however, this came, like some of my comrades here have said, it came as to all of us as, hey, listen, the neighborhood wants to do this. I thought they all wanted to do this. As it's progressed, it's more than clear that almost no one wants to do it. I'm just not willing to force that upon this many people who feel that they don't want it done. Thank you all.
I'm listening to my colleagues' comments and everybody's comments tonight. We received a lot of correspondence, no question. There's been a number of conversations and been able to learn a lot about historic preservation, about this process. I think one of the biggest pieces, no question, is that we need to protect our community from the state's ploy to overdevelop. No question. Whether people want to debate the affordable housing, the legislation on the number of units, no question the state wants to overdevelop. And we need to protect our residential neighborhoods. They're going after single family zoning, period. Single family zoning. We need to protect the character of our community. I mean, I've driven down and I have my own opinions. I was driving to town, driving to Milburn ShopRite today, and you see in the Washington section, which is a different area of town, but you see multiple, a number of houses that are under construction that were torn down, and you have a square next to a triangle, next to a trapezoid, next to a square, next to a square, next to a square. Is that going to go out of style? I mean, I think many of us, have been to old shopping malls and to old airport terminals. And you see what new airport terminals look like, and you see which ones are still standing and how they're really out of date, weren't designed well. And I just hope that there isn't short-sightedness on some of these Costco's that we're seeing pop up in neighborhoods. Not that you could actually buy things in a neighborhood, but just the look. But I would agree from what my colleagues said about the passion, right, and the engagement of all the neighborhood residents. And I hope that, at the end of the day, everybody, they respect each other as neighbors, and that everybody has passions, but, what a way to get to know your neighbors. So I would say I've listened to my colleagues. I do believe we need to protect the community. I also respect the voices of the residents, and I'm ready to take a vote.
So Mayor, before you call the roll, and just so the public is clear and everybody in the dais is clear, we're under section 804.3J of the municipal code, which is final designation. And what it says is all action taken by the township committee on proposed designations shall become effective upon a favorable vote of the majority of its full authorized membership, except in cases in which a protest has been filed with the township clerk in accordance with section 804.3. In such cases, a proposed designation shall then be subject to requirements of NJSA 40:55D-63. And what that section of code says, and I'll summarize it, if a protest petition is filed with 20% of the affected lots, which we have here, it requires a 2/3 vote of the governing body. So in this case, we have 5 members. So it will require 4 affirmative votes. Abstentions don't count. So we're not counting those, we're counting yeses. We'll need 4 yeses to approve this ordinance based on the protest filed with municipal clerk.
All right, I would call for a drum roll, but we don't have equipment for that, so, without further ado, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
No.
Mr. Cosgrove.
No.
Mr. Ceruto,
Seeing that we have
You
2
can
noes,
explain your vote, Mr. Stewart.
abstain.
Mr. Stoller,
I abstain.
Mayor Sakamandy,
Abstain. We'll follow 1-minute recess in case someone wants to stay for the rest of the meeting.
No, it's we get some water. We won't.
We're going to begin again. All right. Right, ordinance 2745-26. I am the sponsor. I present for consideration of ordinance entitled ordinance number 2745-26, ordinance amending chapter 7 traffic of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milford. The purpose of the proposed amendment to chapter 7 traffic code of Milford's general ordinances is intended to provide a higher range of fines and penalties related to chapter 7 infractions that will be established by resolution each year. One of the main goals for the increase in the range for penalties is to combat not parking within a parking space in Milford streets. This ordinance also establishes a prohibition of loading and delivery during certain peak traffic times to reduce congestion and vehicular conflict. Deliveries and loading will be prohibited between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. Have anyone online? Okay. I moved this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on the final reading and the township clerk be directed to post the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second, please? Second. Anyone wish to make a comment?
No.
No. In that case, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
No.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes. All right, moving on to old business, local historic designation of train bridges. Mayor Costco, is this you?
Yeah, I don't mind, thank you, Mayor, I don't mind taking that, so. If folks have been following this, they know there was a report done, via the HPC, which was sent up to us designating the bridges, the railroad bridges in town, and that's all of them, kind of from the one near Benihana all the way through town, as historic. In an attempt to preserve those and to make sure that if they are repaired, they're repaired in kind. So that's it.
Seems, I think we talked about this before, it seems to me like a good idea. I think things back in the day, especially the bridges were built a little bit better than they are now. So to have them replaced in kind seems to make sense. What, if any, action do we need to take at this point if we want to move this
We
along?
authorize money for a report, right? So there needs to be, coming out of historic preservation, some kind of recommendation to move ahead with it, right?
I thought they did that.
Yeah.
So then we need an
So we should
ordinance.
move to ordinance.
And we need an ordinance.
Yeah, so if we could get that ordinance ready for this meeting, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I support.
Especially the one on Short Hills Avenue that they keep getting stuck under.
Yeah.
And then that gets repaired. I wouldn't want to see it get repaired in a shoddy way.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how that bridge is still standing.
It is.
All right, new business, proposed tree regulations. Mr. Ceruto?
Sure. So overall, there's been and it came up tonight. There's a lot of concerns. I serve on the Shade Tree Advisory Board. And there are concerns from the Township Forester, from the Shade Tree Advisory Board, and from residents at large about trees that are being taken down that are historic, that are fixtures within the community or within properties that, in order to make room for homes, patios, sports courts, etc. And there is not enough regulation or input or the ability for the forester to have input on these trees before it's too late. That is the 101 layman's of this. The second factor is is sort of the impact that taking down these trees broadly has. Number one, stormwater impacts, right? The amount of water that these trees absorb on properties. Number two, the cover, right? The cover, the shade cover in these areas of town. Number three, of course, is the bucolic nature, no pun intended with the word nature, but the nature of, or pun intended, actually, for the natural beauty and the beautification of our neighborhoods. So broadly, those are the broad. The more specifics are within a proposed ordinance. Feel free to jump in, Mayor. But there's basically two different tracks. One is trying to involve the forester earlier in the process on developments. And also, which I want to have a discussion about, is basically the process of removing trees and replacing trees. We currently have processes in place that allow people to take down trees more broadly, right, and pay, basically pay and not plant. And I believe, and we've had discussions, that that should not be the case in certain cases. There should be the requirement, unless you're in a corner, like there's many different reasons why you wouldn't, why you'd still not have to plant a new tree, but in a lot of cases that you would still have to plant trees and within properties make that work. Mayor, do you want to explain your certain on the stormwater?
Yeah, my concern is that you have people that take down a giant tree that's, 50, 100 years old, let's say. That can have a major impact on stormwater management for the neighbors. So these large trees absorb a ton of water. I know this for a fact because, well, science tells us that, but also just anecdotally, I have a tree in my front yard, and my lawn always seems to yellow around that tree because the tree just sucks all of the water out, and I have to have my sprinklers over there water it for a little bit longer. So these trees absorb a lot of stormwater. We've had residents come and say, I never used to have water problems in my backyard until my neighbor took down the tree. It was right along the property line, and now my backyard's flooding. So what I think we should do is, if you're going to take down one of those trees, we should be able to have a way of quantifying how much stormwater it would have absorbed, and then individuals should have to plan for that much extra detention. So I mean, they have to put in a dry well or some other stormwater management system, if they're going to take down one of these big trees. So that's something that I think we were having the planning board conflict engineer, who has a lot of stormwater management expertise, consult with him on that. We're still waiting on that. That was my strategy. I will say tree regulations, they're difficult because it's like each case is different. I would make sure that whatever ordinance we do, I think we should outline in there what a appeals process or what, if the forester makes a decision that you can't take down this tree, I think it'd be good for people to know, right in the ordinance, what they can do, whether it's from the township committee or shade tree advisory board, whatever it may be, to do that appeal. I think that would be helpful as well. I just wanted to say, I understand what you're saying about the stormwater, and that makes sense, but I do think you can't depend, especially a house on a smaller lot that has a giant tree that needs to come down because it's grown big and it's now too close to the house, something like that. The current ordinance, which does allow you to pay your way out instead of planting trees, that may be your option because your lot size is just not big enough. I think it's like 7-to-1 if you take down a tree, 5-to-1, 7-to-1. You just don't have the room. If you planted 5 trees, they would all die because there's not enough room for them
to exist. I do think that measuring the stormwater and replacing it with a dry well, anybody can do that if there's a cost to that, but you know, that's okay. We need to have that, but we still need to have that out of when there's just not enough room to plant, that
Right.
somebody is able to get through that.
I agree, I think
Would
we
agree,
do
lot
still
size.
need that out and, you know, I just, again, it's a very tough thing because it's like each case is its own unique set of circumstances. So I think we're gonna have to do a little bit more work to figure out what the balance is between, you know, protecting trees. I mean, it's like, if you're tearing down the house, you're building a bigger house and it's gonna be in the main footprint of the house or the driveway, then I think, yeah, I mean, the tree's gotta go, right? But if you wanna put a pool in your backyard and you happen to wanna put it where this 100-year-old tree is, well, if you can design around that, you know, that would be preferable.
And you know, so, you know, one of the aspects of ordinances, right? All trees 10 inches in diameter or larger require a tree removal permit, which is a change.
What is it now? I mean, some of them are, is that shorter, you know, smaller trees than today? Because they do require a permit for a big tree.
Yeah, I do think we need a math formula for the smaller lots.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
more
we need
realistic.
a defined comparison between what's on the books today and what we're proposing, just for transparency purposes. I mean, listen. A tree that's sitting, 100-year-old tree, 150-year-old tree that's sitting on a hill that can topple over and crash a $3, $4, and $5 million house should be able to come down. They should be able to pay to take it down. So I just need to understand what the comparison is versus what we're bringing up. The house, Bill, I remember that the tree that was in front of my house was 140 years old, 150 years old, and it dropped what they call a widow maker right into Wyoming Avenue. It could have killed whoever was driving underneath it. And they said it was safe, but when you have the 40, 50, 60, some of the winds we had this year, Alex can probably opine better than me, that are gonna take down some of those trees. You just gotta be very careful with because then it also creates a liability as well. You say somebody can't take a tree down and then it falls and wrecks his house, then who's on point for that?
Yeah, no question, no
So
question.
it's just,
No
we gotta
question.
do the work and understand and do the analysis and do the comparison, so we understand what the difference is.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is trying to include the forester in the processes for.
I'm surprised the forester's not included right now. They definitely are, because they came and walked my
But some,
dog.
later in the process, and to the point where sometimes, especially on larger projects, commercial projects, they really, it's almost like.
So it's commercial, not residential?
Well, it's both,
It's both, but
maybe we need to look at them.
one of the broad comment is sort of, it's almost too late. By the time it gets to the forester, it's almost just like a final pass as opposed to conversation. So basically, we're trying to get consensus, willing to look into this and to put together.
Doesn't the forester have to sign off on the permit?
Well, she always did, yeah.
So if
Yes, Alex.
it's not too late in the process.
So just to jump in here is that, you know, from just a brief analysis of this, was that when it comes to a conforming site that is just going for building permits, the forester is brought into the process early on for that site review. When it comes to the planning board, also similar process. It's really the zoning board that I think there's a late to the game with the forester, which is something that we've identified and have had, again, just a brief discussion internally about when that could take place in a better way, or how we integrate the forester into the zoning board process quicker. But because the zoning board is, you know, they're not necessarily making a decision based on the trees on that property. They're only looking at it from the zoning code, but that property getting zoning code approval, is that then sort of a go, or is it now you can come to the building department and you get denied for all these trees and you can't now build what you went to the zoning board for? So I think there's just a little bit of discussion that needs to take place about the zoning board of adjustment and when the forester comes to that
But not everybody that wants to knock down a tree even has to go to the zoning. board.
Right.
Correct. I think we're saying in the cases,
So
we
is this
wanna,
something
we wanna
that they
avoid
do?
the situation where someone goes for a variance. They go through that process, they get the variance, then they go for the tree removal permit, and then it turns out, well, they can't take down
So
that
that's-
tree. Now they've gotta go
Right.
and redesign it and then go back to the zoning board potentially if they still need variance.
Yeah, and
So
is
that
that
may be-
is that a process at the zoning board? I mean, what do they, shouldn't they bring the forester in before they issue
Well, I
that
think
zoning
that's what we're
permit?
talking
We're
about.
setting that
When do we
process.
bring the forester in during that process? And we're saying
Codifying.
we should do that earlier, like we do with the planning.
So is this to change those applications that go to the zoning board, but if somebody doesn't need to go to the zoning, if someone's putting in a pool, it doesn't necessarily go, does that always go to the zoning board? No, right? So again,
But the forester is brought into that process.
right,
Right from the beginning.
so that's what I'm saying, so it sounds like the problem is just with the zoning board application.
I mean, if I was putting in a pool, I would go talk to a forester and say, hey, I got these two
Right.
trees over right where my new beautiful $200,000 pool's gonna go. Do I have a problem tearing them down?
But some people that go and.
Well, you
zoning
would,
board, They don't do that. And the
Not,
zoning.
that's, you're the exception.
But it just
Well, it
sounds like
save you
we
all
need,
the money of the planning. and
it sounds like we need to carve out a section for the zoning board and the rest of it. Because the planning board part is working,
Right.
the people that don't go to the zoning board, that part is working, so it seems like that's what we need to just focus on, because that's where the problem is.
So Alan,
And the math formula.
And
Right,
then
small lots.
small lots too.
okay, so do you think that makes sense? I know you and the team were going.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I think also what you're looking at is the stormwater aspect of it and whether you can quantify the species of tree, the size of the tree, and how much stormwater that tree takes up. And in addition, I think some of this is just further tightening of some things, whether it's tree protection zones as well as exemptions, which I think have proven at times to be problematic. Not necessarily from the standpoint of whether or not they're gonna be able to take down a tree, but I think sometimes people would just make a decision because it's exempted, rather than saying, oh, I need to have a real conversation about where I'm gonna put this driveway. Now, like this ordinance would change it to where they're putting their driveway. Not necessarily that they wouldn't be able to do it, but that it's just not automatically exempted.
Do we have any input from the environmental commission?
Well, the Shade Tree Advisory Board is,
I
Or
brought this up with the EC, so one of the reasons this started is someone came in front of the EC, and told a story about how a tree got taken down, and they started having stormwater issues that they didn't have previously. And so that coupled with some of the reasons we decided to take a look at this. So it's, I can bring this back to them, once we have something on paper, we can have them opine, but they did seem supportive of this idea to make modifications and.
Yeah, I mean, as long as
clarity.
it's process oriented and not restrictive to a point where you're choking out a resident, I'm fine with it, as long as there's the process in place and it includes a methodical way to get those approvals. I don't understand why somebody would say, hey, again, if I'm gonna build a pool right on top of these two trees, I wanna have a forester come and opine on the trees first to make sure we can get that done. If you wanna move that up in the process, I'm fine with that, but,
I also think we should outline the steps to appeal a decision by the forester. But we did that with APC, right? In the APC ordinance, we outlined the, 20%
Yeah,
provision and all
there.
that. So this would do the same thing, just give clarity directly in the ordinance on, that way residents know, if I get denied, here's my recourse.
or I should be a recourse, so.
But the case if somebody has a tree now it's grown so that some of the branches are like over the house. And if you chop it down, the tree would become unstable. That the forester is pretty well involved in already, and those people still have to either plant new trees, pay to get out, and now we would add, an either or, I would guess, that's stormwater.
Another
An
thing
appeal
too,
comes to us.
the other thing too is, you tell somebody they can't cut down one of these trees, and I'm talking about massive trees, this tree was, 5 foot in diameter, that thing, oh, you can't tear it down, it falls on my house, I'm coming right here with a lawsuit in hand, ready to go. So,
If the tree's threatening the house, you should be able to take it down.
Right, okay, yeah, I mean, I just don't think we should, be stepping in front of that, but.
Yeah, we
I'm
just.
happy to look at it.
You should be able to take it down, but you are still responsible for managing the stormwater.
And,
Right, exactly.
yeah, correct. And, you know, the winds we had this past year, dude, what was the highest clock, Alex?
We're up to, I mean, we're up to 50s, 60s.
Yeah, I remember like sixties, just south of seventies, but those will take down just about anything. So you gotta be cognizant that we could have one-off effects that are gonna take these trees over.
Sure, well, we won't find somebody if the wind takes down the tree.
No, that's not the point. They wanna take it down.
Yeah,
And we say no, and then it
Yeah.
comes down and wrecks their house.
Right, I think, Alex.
Sorry, I'll give you another just quick example, because we went through this in the South Mountain area when it came to pin oaks. So there is also a point where the trees, despite, you know, they kind of outlive their usefulness. Where they're planted, you know, they planted pin oaks in a median on these streets in South Mountain that just couldn't handle the root system. So all of them were, you know, compromised. We had a big storm, snapped a bunch. So we started taking some of that. Obviously, then that became a very good thing about us taking down the tree, the very beautiful pin oaks. But it was, you know, it does become a concern that from a safety perspective, and that they're gonna come down. And then, you know, you kind of replant and restart. You have to kind of restart the process of building your shade tree and your shade again, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's education, you know, people don't know necessarily the history of some of these trees and do the neighborhoods. I mean, you know, Lawrence Drive is all, is it Malash? They're all, yeah, they're treated. Yeah, no, but they're all treated, that entire street. Anyways, okay, so we have consensus.
There was something in here, I thought it was new about tree companies being licensed, or, I mean, I thought that was always the case, but it seemed to be highlighted in red.
Yeah.
In this stuff, so is that changing, or are we forming a registry like we did with?
We
the
already have
landscapers?
that.
I
Yeah,
thought we
but-
did.
But I think it's also putting in here more of like penalties for for those tree contractors if which is gonna be a legal question of what can then be done if they're registered with the township and, you know, they have 3 violations, you know, are they suspended from doing work in township for a certain amount of time, things like that.
All right, so next up is proposed for council committee and
All right, so hopefully everybody's been able to read a little bit that was provided. But overall, we have had a lot of interest throughout the town, whether it be creative collective, whether it was the cultural engagement, whether it was our advisory that currently exists, whether it's Explore Millburn Short Hills, whether it's talented art students across the parking lot, Millburn High School. So, you know, there's basically been there's been a lot of interest in art, and the process has been real murky. And I think the current systems in place don't provide the right arm. You know, the Art Advisory Committee is limited in their definition and their powers. So we look at our neighbor in Summit, they have rotating art pieces that are on a temporary basis. They have, for example, near the train station. They also have rotating pieces near their town hall. On one of their parking garages, they have a mural that's up, you know, which is obviously, I don't think that's temporary. But long story short is they have an approval process in place, right? So it starts with, you know, it ultimately goes up to their town council. But, you know, there's a review by the attorney, by the risk manager, there's an application, there's an agreement to terms, there's an initial review. There's a really good defined process on public art, right? So it's black and white and it's understood, and they prioritize a lot of rotating.
By public art, do you mean outdoor art?
Yeah, outdoor art. But it could be indoor too.
Because I guess, I'm not saying they're doing it, but isn't this the job of the art advisory committee that we already have. They're the stewards of whatever the town owns in the way of art, is my understanding. That's their charter.
Well,
And if they're not doing it, that
is basically.
rather than forming a new
I think
committee.
it was.
no, I think what
I think
we
it
would
was.
want to do is modify the scope of what the Arts Advisory Committee does, maybe call it something different, but for example, the SID is trying to do some sort of project right now where they're going to be doing a public art plan for the whole town. Well, they didn't even bother to consult the Art Advisory Committee. We ought to have one central place where if you're doing something related to art, it should go through and be advised by this committee. And, you know, I think some examples.
I'm okay with that. I just think it's duplicate, but to have that and the art advisory committee is.
This would replace.
This would replace and be, maybe.
Once again, it would
powerful,
enhance it, you know.
broader scope.
It basically, there's the example of Westfield. Now, Westfield does a very good job. There's the proposed ordinance, which I would like to sort of get feedback. I'd like to model the ordinance that Westfield has, with some exceptions. They have a town historian. We don't have a town historian. Maybe, I don't know, there's a liaison to to the Historical Society, and more residents. I think they have 3 or 4. But we could make it unlimited.
Because I believe the art advisory committee is one of our orphan committees, right? I don't think any of us, there's no liaison from the TC on that. So, you know, I think, I'm not sure if we're gonna form this, you know, somehow or another, right? Somebody needs, who was ever leading, it seems like that would be you, Jamie.
I just got added on 2 new committees. We're gonna figure out who's the liaison.
But I'm just saying, you know, I wouldn't wanna see yet another, we have a gazillion committees, we've just added, you know, another one for strategic planning, so.
Which I'm,
right. So rather than having yet another committee, I just think this is somehow in the, you know, if we rename it, we can do whatever we do, but we don't need both of them.
I agree. So I don't know, what did Dave, anything?
And I will say with regards to, you know, all these committees, maybe we'll get lucky and next year we'll have 7 township council members and we'll be able to spread the workload out a little bit. See what happens with that.
What do you think, Dave?
I'm fine with centralizing it. I would just take the current committee, you know, and just, you know, change its.
Expand its chart.
Expand its chart, you know.
Maybe have a representative from the SID, for instance, on there, as a liaison. It seems like the SID sometimes gets grants to do art, that way they're included, and maybe it makes sense to have a liaison from HPC.
Yeah, I think a liaison from HPC, a liaison from the SID. I mean, Westfield has the liaison from their downtown group. So it's the SID, just different name, and then liaison from town hall.
All right, well, it sounds like we have consensus. Let's not belabor the point. Let's just move on.
Cool. No, as long as
You have consensus.
Good. All right, that's it.
One final note, make sure you let the art advisory committee member know that we'll be doing this, that way it's not a surprise and they're thinking it's like disappearing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Announcement, we are working on. Sure, yeah, no, of course, and I think, but I think this is also a call to the community and to students and to artists at the high school and to those who didn't feel, I don't know, whatever.
We should add a Board of Ed representative.
Board of Ed representative. So this is a call to the community. If you're listening to this, and maybe we'll put it in the Millburn message at some point, but if you want to get involved in art, reach out to me. That's it.
All right, second public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak, offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name, whether you are a Millburn resident, or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing as our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder, in order to facilitate a quarterly meeting and permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. Now open the public comment period.
Hi, everyone. My name is Xiaofeng. I live in the Winthrop neighborhood with Rob. And I'm concerned about that traffic accident issue there. And that South Orange section there between Short Hills and the Brook Drive. There's a very sharp, big turn there, and it really makes it very unsafe. If we are at the speed limit of 45 miles per hour, and I'm a physicist, I just did a calculation there. But that section is only about like 1,500 feet to 2,000 feet. So if you drive at 45 miles per hour, it's only less than 40 seconds. And if you reduce the speed limit to 35 miles per hour, it's only 8 to 7 seconds less. More. So you only reduce the speed, reduce the time of 8 seconds for that particular section. So that's why I disagree with the earlier comment that it's going to slow the traffic. I don't agree with that because based on this calculation, you have those traffic lights between these, at the end of the section, and those traffic lights usually take 2 minutes. And how about 8 seconds with those 2 minutes of wait? It doesn't slow the traffic at all. So I really urge the township could help us to, talk to the leadership in the county to reduce the speed limit there. And also, it doesn't matter we're making left turn or right turn, because if the traffic is fast, it makes the same difficulty. Everywhere you make a left turn is difficult than make a right turn. It doesn't appear here, because there's no reason to block the left turn. So that's not a solution at all. It's the only thing is that the speed limit is causing the issue that the turn is difficult. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Rob Friedman again, Mountaintop section resident. I'd also like to clear up a couple of misjudgments I believe the township administrator made early in the meeting regarding the speed limit issue. First of all, that stretch of South Orange Avenue at issue consists of about an eighth of a mile, if that, which ends at the traffic light. I'm just echoing what my neighbor just mentioned. So lowering the speed limit would hardly lead to any congestion issue. Related to that, a tiny inconvenience pales in comparison to someone getting into a paralyzing or fatal accident. Second, there's only 2 ingress/egress roads in the neighborhood, as mentioned before, Winthrop and Puritan. By forcing someone to make a left-hand turn on Old Short Hills Road off of Puritan, another heavily traveled county road, banning people from making a left onto South Orange Avenue from Winthrop is a non-starter. Third, the town can certainly try to reach out to the county, but unless Joe D can somehow pull out a rabbit out of a hat, the onus needs to be on the township administrator to oversee a revised traffic report and make sure whatever consulting firm is competent and makes the appropriate assumptions. Bottom line, the Mountaintop neighborhood, which makes up of at least 160 residents, is crying out for dramatic decrease in the speed limit. I can show you the WhatsApp, threads. Trust me. So do I really need to spend time putting together a petition from the whole neighborhood? I will do it. But which speaks to the issue, broadly speaking, the township administration writ large needs to develop more of a default mindset of what the town can do to accommodate its citizens, not automatically say what can't be done. Thank you.
Jeff Feldman in the poet section. Basically, I have 3 comments. One goes to your discussion about the art council. Jamie, when you talked about the Westfield example, you used the word downtown group. Remember the 5 districts, there's 4 other districts in the city, downtown. Also, you were part of the original formatted CDC meeting. Most of the agenda was discussing art-related projects, whether a jazz festival or an art show for cottage industry. And I think part of the issue we have to find out is what committees really have jurisdiction. Should the CDC be talking about art projects, or does that belong on this new art jurisdiction issue? Because that's part of the fight you're having with the CID. Earlier today, we had major discussions about the neighborhood. We heard words of misinformation campaign, honest and truthful facts, harassment and intimidation, tactics, pressure, trampling upon civil liberties, stewards of public trust. You need to look at the record of BP2. We heard of an order. It was dated July 15th, was not docketed till October. There were various hearings. The judge did not announce her rulings on the two cases till August 19th, 2026. In October 29th, 2025, she directed us, myself and Mr. Cantors, to submit orders to her. And if you look at the ominous order Mr. Cantor submitted, he said the BP2 was dismissed without prejudice. Truth matters, and the court, and we remember the words, sorts of a public trust. This township has intangible goodwill that's losing from the courts. It's not just in BP1, BP2, it's in the round 3 litigation. Judge Russo stated that he had to enter an amended order to have the exhibits to the final compliance and compliance, I forget the word, but those exhibits have never been submitted. There's never really, in my mind, ever been a final order with appropriate exhibits in the round 3 case. That goes back, and all I know is because I raised that issue, you brought a sanctions motion against me.
Janet Pizar, Township resident. In regards to the February or March discussion to impose a fine on those who fail to shovel and plow their property in a timely manner. And I want to say, I fully appreciate that this is a safety issue for pedestrians. However, the knee-jerk proposal was again an excessively punitive $500 fine with the justification, quote, "They won't do it again," unquote. There was no utterance of a prior warning. There was no consideration of extenuating circumstances. 31% of Milburn Short Hills residents are 65 years old or older. Can some of them still remove snow? Of course. Yet, however, the remaining 69% may also have instances of illness, injury, disability, or simply unable to do so. This large faction is therefore dependent on service providers, as am I, and they are not always dependable. Service providers often commit to a time appearance to be 11 o'clock in the morning, and they'll turn around at 5 or 6 in the afternoon. An excessive fine of $500 with rigidity of enforcement of 6 hours after the snow falls with no concessions for extenuating circumstances is excessively punitive. Yet again, I urge you to take these comments into consideration should you decide to move forward with the fine. Milburn residents deserve a kinder and gentler administration. Thank you.
Hey guys, Christine Best back again. I can't decide what to talk about. You've been talking about all these fabulous new things, so I'm just gonna make a couple quick comments. Robert, totally support what he's talking about. That neighborhood is a nightmare to get out of, and I learned that when campaigning. Wouldn't want to make a left-hand turn on either of those 4-lane roads at all. So yeah, he's totally right. So I'd love to talk to you guys about the trees because I actually have some interesting ideas to add to your considerations, and maybe I'll just email that to you at some point when I have some time. But I want to talk about the art council that Jamie brought up. I actually think the fact that he's looking at restructuring, you know, we have 3 people in the ring for art right now, and I want to explain why I think that Explore is most likely possibly involved in it, because we are involved in being a Main Street designated community, which ties to New Jersey Main Street. I don't know as much about this. Steve does. He's very, very smart. But they have a 4-point approach, and part of that is design of the downtown, and that does include, while it's not required, it highly, highly encourages the use of public art, which is why we now have an RFP out for a public art master plan, okay? And, you know, I think the concern, and Jamie brings up a really good point, is that we can't just create random committees that duplicate the efforts of other committees. And that's really, you know, I'm very, very glad that Jamie brought it to everybody's attention. You know, I want to talk to you too, because that grant that was given for that could have been used to actually do a mural to beautify our town versus doing a strategic plan. And as somebody who went to RISD, I mean, doing a strategic plan for art isn't really that difficult. And I bet you there's somebody in the art advisory board that could have done that, had they been asked. So, you know, kudos to you for doing that. And I also want to talk just quickly about CETA as a committee. And I know everybody's heard about it again and again and again, but as somebody who can paint, and was a fine artist and a designer, and then went into corporate America, the CETA mural was an abuse of the arts. And the reason why I say that is, number one, it's not aesthetically pretty in any way whatsoever. As a design piece, it's really poorly designed. And that's not my biggest issue. My issue is probably at least 40% of the tiles on that mural are advertising tiles for nonprofits, okay? That's not art. And so I definitely don't think that committee should ever be involved in art at all. And I feel really strongly about it. So I'll talk about trees another time. And thank you so much for everything today.
Bye. Jean Pasternak. I just want to say I completely agree with Rob. That's so treacherous there. I'm not shocked at all that somebody got unfortunately killed there. So I hope that gets a high priority. Also, the Woodfield Estates decision, I think you guys made a mistake. You're gonna regret it, and I hope it doesn't discourage other neighborhoods from coming forward. I hope it happens in my neighborhood, and I'm fully supportive of any effort to do this. I also want to echo Christine's comments in support of the Art Council that Jamie has brought up. So, as chair of the Republican Committee, I'm speaking, and also 2 weeks ago, I was appointed to serve on the long-term strategic planning board. I'm here tonight because 2 weeks ago, Committeeman Cohen voted against this board and said on the record that he objected to Republican activists on it. He was referring to me. I'd like to respond. Let me tell you about this activist. More than 35 years ago, I became one of the first women named managing director at a major Wall Street firm in London where we both worked. I call myself a pioneer and I'm proud of it. I served on the Milburn Board of Education, and based on that experience, I spent years advocating for special education as well as long-term strategic planning for the school board, and now the town. While the Democratic majority was in charge of the town, they ignored me every time. Now I need to say something plainly. For a decade, while Democrats controlled the Township Committee, they removed almost every Republican and elevated Democrats to boards and committees, building their profiles, expanding their influence, systematically ensuring that anyone who might challenge their rule was kept out. Jackie Lieberberg, the previous chair of the Melbourne Democratic Committee, she ruled CETA for 6 years as a self-appointed, unelected chair and continues to chair Explore Melbourne Short Hills. Somehow one's political activism wasn't held against them back then. I wonder why. Maybe it was because it depended on which party you belong to. And now Committee Cohen had the audacity to call me an activist, as if civic engagement is a disqualification, but only when the engaged citizen is a Republican. It's a catch-22. A Republican who dares to speak up and get involved is dismissed as an activist, but a Republican who stays home and doesn't have the qualifications to serve, well, too bad. So tell me, Committee Cohen, which is it? And while we're on the subject of who is fit to serve, Committeeman Cohen sits on the Milburn Democratic Committee, which saw fit to elevate as a Township Committee candidate someone who registered to vote in 2020 and never once cast a ballot until 2023 when she voted for herself.
Do you have anything online?
No.
All right, in that case, I will close comment. Any TC numbers like to respond?
Sure,
Mr. Stoller.
Sure. And couple things, I'll just say this, I take umbrage with saying that, our township administrator, Mr. Alex, rules with an iron fist, and he just dismisses these out of hand. I've spent, almost 3 years now on this committee. Anytime I've called, anytime a neighbor's called, anytime I've seen him in his office, he picks up the phone, he does the work, and we appreciate it. Some things are out of his control. He said earlier that, hopefully, Orlando's watching, from the county. Those are the guys who will make this decision. Rob, I appreciate everything you do. I view you as a very good friend, but out of hand dismissing no left turn there, if that's what the people we hire to look at it and such say, then maybe there will be no left turn there. So let's do the work, let's understand it, let's not just cast aspersions on our township administrator. To Ms. Pizar again, that narrative, false narrative, there will be extenuating circumstances. We've discussed it up here for hours about extenuating circumstances, about extended the time. We talked about working with the prosecutor, working with everyone to understand the circumstances. So that's just a false narrative that's being put out there. It's not true. And then the whole art thing, let's see what comes out of it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Sure, of course, I'm gonna respond to Mrs. Pasternak. I think where this all started, and I certainly know your qualifications, and I remember all the work that you did on the Board of Education for families with special needs, my family being part of that. I think the issue that I had, it stems from when we wrote the ordinance that forced Mrs. Lieberberg to step down as the party chair, or choose between stepping down as the party chair or stepping down as being on the committee. And I didn't know that I see you're not the chair, but I think that's what I was reacting to. And if you were not the chair, then certainly you have the qualifications to be on the committee. I know that you were the one who was pushed for this for all these years. But as the chair of a political party, coupled with Mr. Friedman, who was a brief candidate for Township Committee, being 2 of 5 people on a committee looking at the long term, I didn't think that was an even balance. And when I said that, what I was told was that somebody else on the committee who I've never met, or 2 people on the committee who I've never ever met, are registered Democrats, which is certainly their right. I don't know who they are. They're one of them, I think, is new to the town. That's what I was reacting to. But I didn't expect that you would step down as Republican chair, although, maybe one day that's what will happen.
Yes, okay. So, Mr. Feld, I was referring to the ordinance from Westfield specifically says one representative from the board or staff of the downtown Westfield Corporation, which is why I mentioned the word downtown. I support Alex as well. I think, let's get the facts straight, on this intersection and on South Orange Avenue. Frankly, there are 2 lanes there and I drive there. I've never seen it back up heading towards Florham Park, really. And I'm curious why there are 2 lanes. I understand it's a county road. I'm not saying let's just go and do 1 lane, but I don't know, maybe that's a solution too. Or maybe the cars will drive even quicker because there's just 1 lane, but let's get the facts. Orlando, Earth to Orlando.
I have an update on that.
All right, great.
He was watching, he responded to me there, right?
Excellent. All right, so, excellent. Let's see, art, yeah, let's just keep rolling with the art. This whole idea to, political people, I mean, Jackie and Richard are on Explore Milburn, they hold the 2 resident seats. And they were both former township committee members. There's been chairs and many people within the Democratic Party who have served and continue to serve on these boards and commissions. Mary McNatt, the late, great Mary McNatt was kicked off of, what was it, zoning or planning? It's unfortunate, but I think, we just gotta work together. Ms. Pizar, I mean, obviously we wanna, there are circumstances, what about children who have to get to school and those who have to get to work and, you have to, we wanna make sure it works for all residents. That's why I've convened scout troops with Ms. Hawkins and with Dr. Frankel, and we've talked about those. I think this whole, negative wave, I don't know where it's coming from. I mean, we've been so transparent about everything, this administration, we're trying to do good. So I ask to work in partnership with you on these things. If you'd like to make tweaks and suggestions, we're all ears as you did tonight. But we're trying our best. I think that's it.
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
So during the break, I did get a note from Orlando, who's our county representative. He watches these meetings via Zoom. So he immediately reached out to Sanjeev, the county traffic engineer, and inquired, if he could look into the situation. So we will see what develops there. I think one of the challenges is, a left turn out of that road is the safest thing to do. I don't know how you fix that, other than to not make a left turn, but it sounds like the neighborhood doesn't want that. So we'll see what we'll talk with the county, we'll see what they say. Maybe they'll be amenable to adjusting the speed limit. The only thing about adjusting the speed limit is that it's generally a suggestion to people in this town at least. While we can adjust speed limits, I don't know that that'll necessarily make people slow down. So maybe there's a more creative solution. We'll talk with the county and we'll see what we can do. As Mr. Ceruto pointed out, I think he already reached out to the scouts about the snow shoveling. And I believe that our new ordinance actually extends the amount of time people have to clear the snow. But at the same time, it does raise the penalty if you don't do it. So, I think that was a good balance. And as far as, negativity, it seems that the negativity that I'm hearing is coming from that side of the room, not up here on the dais. With regards to Ms. Lieberberg, she could have remained the chair of the Democrat committee. She just would have had to step down as chair of the SID. She could have stayed on the SID. I think it's a good point to, both of them are former elected officials. So the fact that someone that was briefly a candidate, like that shouldn't disqualify them from serving on a committee when we let former members of the township committee serve on and chair committees, right? It's just ridiculous. And I really hope that come June 16th, that the residents of this town choose a better way and choose to go to a new form of government that has nonpartisan elections, because I'm tired of all this partisanship. It's nonsense. It has nothing to do with local government, and it just invites people to have these factions that oppose each other for no good reason. So I really hope that in a few months we'll have some clarity, and hopefully next year we'll have a better system, and we won't be having these same arguments.
I just want to say, I wasn't talking about disqualification, I was talking about balance. And I did not feel that committee was balanced.
Glad you bring up balance, because I think that since Ben and I got elected and got this dais, we've started to see much more of a balance on these committees. Because previously if you were a Republican, you might as well have not even applied. It seemed like you weren't considered. I mean, I can go back and historically look, maybe I'll do this exercise, it'd be interesting. Very few Republicans were allowed on committees.
Just make sure you go back far enough to when there were no Democrats
Well,
allowed.
and that was a problem too, right? Well,
Look, we're trying to right the
we're trying
wrongs,
to right
and
the
I
wrongs,
think
and I
that,
think
that's.
we've done a good job of trying to balance the committee, and with the strategic planning committee, the former Democratic mayor of Edison, who's been a resident for quite a while, is on that committee and is now the chair of the committee. I mean, you don't get more qualified than that, so you know, let's try to move past the partisanship. All right, that's all I have to say.
Alex,
Yes.
So, first of all, I'd just like to, certainly, Mr. Freeman, I didn't mean to, have you take umbrage with what I said. I think more so I was just, setting some expectations as it relates to what, is possible and what may occur. And I don't, I want to be cognizant of not taking an incident that is tragic, and first and foremost, I'd just like to clarify that the individual is not dead at this point. But that may or may not have, it's sort of like making this correlation to this incident that may or may not have had anything to do with speed, or we don't know any of that yet. And so again, I was just sort of setting expectations, certainly didn't mean to upset you in any way or think that I was a no man. Quite honestly, at times I feel, the opposite, which also can lead to, a lot more work. So anyway, I certainly will be looking into it, make sure, I definitely look into, why you haven't received the report yet, and I'll get that to you straight away. If I hadn't sent it, and I do apologize for that. But anyway, so I just wanted to clarify that. Appreciate it.
Attorney Cantor, did you have?
I don't further comment there, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.